caterpillar stage, which I already had mentioned before. And my first artifact that I have is from the Psych 101 class that I took my sophomore year. And this was the midterm that I had done. And for the instructions for it, it's not working here, but that's fine. So they were very brief instructions and just very simple assignment that we had to do. And for mine, I put in no effort and actually turned in the assignment 3 months late. And the only reason that I had done it is because I was told if I don't pass the class. So I ended up putting in no effort, just trying to make sure it was done. And the assignment all in all was just very poorly made, and the grade that got was deserved because of how much effort was put in. It's just slow. And then the second artifact is also from Psych 101, but it was the final, which this one had the same exact instructions as the first one. But for this one, I had actually put in the effort and made sure I hit all of the standards that Ms. Nagy was looking for, and even did more to fully explain everything so I could prove that I had mastered it and I knew what I was talking about in psychology, even though I might not have wanted to, just show that I know what I'm doing. And then that was a little paragraph that I had written just to show I hit all of the points that she was looking for. I fully explained everything and knew what I was talking about. And then, so my connection and for the so what ideal, so connected to my metaphor, the caterpillar stage. The caterpillar is still trying to figure out the world, figure out what's going on, and it knows what it needs to do to finish, to move on to the next stage of its life, which is kind of how I connected to myself. I need to take responsibility for my actions and show, I need to do this first before I can move on, and just prove that I know what I'm talking about, and I may not want to do it, but I can do it, and it is possible. And just keeping that growth mindset of this sucks, but it's fine, you can get it done. And you need to do it because not everything in life is going to be fun. And just knowing that now to help in the future when I'm done and don't have the safety net of teachers to rely on to have that extension turning in the assignment late, and being able to just be able to know that I can do this and it's going to be great. All right, the second one that I want to show is science, which has the ideal of making connections. And for my connecting to the metaphor, it's going to be the chrysalis stage. The first artifact is from food science that I'm taking this year. And this was the semester final that we had done. And I decided to do mine on pickle fermentation because that was one of the labs that we had done that I really enjoyed doing. And it was super fun for me. And personally, I love pickles, so getting to do it in a scientific way was a lot of fun for me. And so the write-up that we had to do after is the artifact that I'm showing. Basically, the purpose behind it of just why we're doing this, why to even use fermentation. And then the second artifact is from forensics, my junior year. And this was the innocence project that we had done. So we had to take a case and that was proven guilty and show how they were actually not guilty. And the case was already finished and he was proven not guilty later, but we had to show how they went wrong and using our outside knowledge, but also using different sources that we did have in class. And so I picked Freddie Peacock to do mine on. He was wrongly convicted of rape, and how the officers that went about it, they told the victim his full name, they showed pictures of him, and she was like, oh yeah, that was him, when he was like, I didn't even do it, I just live in your building. So it took a couple years, but he had finally was proved that he was not guilty and it was somebody else. All right, so how they connect, and for my ideal making connections. So for both of these, I was able to use my own outside knowledge and connect it to each of these assignments, and just use different sources that I already had, and even just do even more research to show for some of these, I did have like a little bit of background knowledge. Like for food science, I did have some background knowledge on like pickles and like how that process should be made, and had like a little background knowledge on like the forensics case because there's some stuff I'd always been interested in police work, so I'd taken classes before to know how it should be done. So having that prior knowledge, and I was able to improve these, like with these real world situations, improve the skills that I already had, and just keep showing like I can like make these connections like in my own life and apply it to an assignment to show like I know what I'm talking about and here it is. And just connecting to my metaphor for the chrysalis stage, just getting a grasp of reality but still needing to improve. Like I can always improve, but having that outside knowledge that I already have, just showing like, oh, here's like, I know what I'm doing, here it is, like I can always improve because knowing like with these labs and everything that I did, there were a lot of mistakes made. It did need to be improved, but I knew where I needed to fix it. And like having that outside knowledge was like a huge help just so I could keep going and not stumble every single step. And the last one for my last standard, math, which I want to show is mastery. For my first artifact, it was from college prep math that I had taken. And just quickly, like I had started in Unit 7, and for my first prep for the test, I scored a 75, which was okay, but then for my final test, I scored a 90, which showed like I was able to refresh, like do it again, and actually score highly on the test. And I had taken the prep for the test twice just so I could push myself a little bit further and be like, I know what I'm doing, I can show that I know it. And I was able to score even higher than on both of the preps because I had taken that time, studied, taken the test over again, and knew what I was doing. And then my second artifact was from this year in Math and Modern Society, which was the personal finance project. And just a little snippet right here, we had to figure out a career, what career we would want to pursue in the future, figure out the average salary for that, and then do the tax form for that. So for mine, I had chosen for the career of a firefighter, and figure out the average salary was a little over $51,000 a year, and then just how much I would need to pay in taxes for that. And this just really helped my own understanding, like it is a lower paying job, but still like the taxes are not that bad. And just show like I can master math and just like I know what I'm doing, I can apply it, and I was able to show in this project that I know how to file taxes. All right, so also how they connect and my ideal. So it connects to mastery because I was able to demonstrate I know what I'm doing, and also I'm able to help and assist others with their own understanding of math. And I was able to score highly on tests, and that has always been something I've been able to score very well on tests. Math just came easier to me, and I've been able to show it the past few years by always getting almost 4s on the tests. And just connects to the butterfly because I'm able to go off on my own, show that independence, that I still have that support, but I know what I'm doing and I can just go off. And just that demonstration to break out and fly from the chrysalis as this butterfly, like I got this and I'll be ready to do this in the real world. All right, and then just a little like final lesson from all of this. So everyone is going to struggle at first, but the mindset can really help to guide you. And that's how I kind of thought throughout all of high school, because at first it was a little all over the place, like had a very poor mindset, but like these last few years I've really shown like that I can improve. I just have that positive mindset and I'm able to just keep going. And growing is a part of learning, so it's not gonna be easy, but like once you are like able to grow and expand your knowledge, you're learning more, which has helped me a lot, just to know like, I know I'm not gonna get on the first try, and I can just keep growing and learning. And success takes time. It can be accomplished through time and hard work. So just knowing like, it's taken me a while to get to all those mastery steps, but I was able to get there. it just took a little time, and just having that growth mindset, knowing that I can do this and that it'll be over soon. Right? Thank you. Sorry, any questions?
What are you going to do from here?
So after high school, I know that I am moving to Washington, and I'm going to join the Washington Fire Academy. So I'm really excited to pursue that after, and just knowing like everything that I've taken from Compass and everything that's been taught to me, I know I can apply that in the real world, like having that positive growth mindset, because I don't know if I'm going to get into the Fire Academy yet, but I know like how well I've done here can show like I know what I'm doing, I can like be effective in society.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
What has your senior project taught you?
Well, it taught me a lot of like how, like from the past, how I used to like do all my assignments, how they were done, versus now how much better they've gotten, how much more I've improved, and just showing that like I can put together something really nice. I know at first I was like a little iffy about it, and it was a little bit last minute from the start, but then at the end it was produced really greatly, in my opinion.
Yeah, how do you think your time management skills have either grown or are going to affect you in the real world? Like, you're going to be living on your own, right? And you've got this awesome new job opportunity. How is your time management going to impact your success, do you think?
I think like time management can always be improved. I know that's something for me, like I want to make sure it looks good, so I might spend a little bit extra time on it. And I know like even I've seen that outside of school, like in my job, like there's sometimes I'll take a little bit extra time to be like, hey, you need to speed it up a little bit. I'll be like, oh, my bad. Sorry. So just knowing like I have improved that, especially from like freshman year, like just that procrastination, like not turning in those assignments versus now like actually getting them turned in and they are good. Like I know that I can block out that time, get it done, and it still looks good.
Thanks, Megan. Appreciate it. All right, guys. And then audience comments. You guys doing great. We're just not going to clap after her presentation. We're only going to clap after the questions because the clapping also like signals people can come in. Okay? That makes sense? Okay, cool. And then Reagan, what are your tips and tricks on using the clicker?
You kind of just gotta find the spot.
Okay, find the spot.
It was like all over the
Okay.
place where it would work.
Okay.
It did seem delayed though too.
Yeah, it's a little delayed. You gotta really make sure you click it, and the computer is the receptor. So, okay. Yeah, we still have just like 2 minutes. We're gonna finish up our.
I'm gonna have to make sure I figure
Okay, make sure you can figure out your clicker. Go first. Education was 11 minutes. So. And it's your whole second.
Hello, my name is Amaya Austin, and this is my senior project. My first standard is going to be English with the ideal of achievement. My second is math and mastery, and then my third is technology and growth. Oh, come on, please. Okay, English with the ideal of achievement. Okay, my first artifact was from my 11th grade writing and rhetoric class. This was our final assignment where we took all of the essays that we wrote throughout the year and we compiled them and the rough drafts into one document so that we could look at the improvement that we'd made over the years and over the semester and reflect on how we grew from our rough drafts to our final product. And we had our cover letter, which detailed how our writing had changed. This is an image of that cover letter. And from the underlining that will show up in a little bit, hopefully. Okay, we had 4 essays. We had a narrative essay, we had a classification essay, a compare and contrast essay, and then an argumentative essay. This class really pushed me to do more than the typical essay format I was used to, but it was kind of all along the same lines. My second artifact is from my 12th grade British literature class. This was a final for a unit that we'd done on a satirical bit of literature. Satire is a critique on society, an individual, or a group of people in a way that is almost sarcastic but forces them to recognize their faults and make the changes that the writer is trying to point out. We were given the task to create a satire on a specific occupation. I chose a lawyer. And this is my first paragraph for that, but the results were really what's important to me. On the far right side of the screen, you can see that I got good grades, but what was most important to me was the comment that Miss Stevens left. It says, Amaya, from the names to the repetition in paragraph 1 to the understated satire, this is a stellar satire. I cannot tell you how happy and proud this made me feel, because going into this, I did not feel confident with my ability to create a satire. It was a much more complicated and subtle type of writing, and I felt that in equal parts, the comments I was making on the career were too obvious and too in your face, or were too subtle, and the reader or listener would not be able to get the points that I was making. These 2 artifacts connect to the ideal of achievement because I was able to prove to myself that I can do more than the typical informational or research essay. I did a lot of different essays in my portfolio, and I also proved that I can do complicated writing with literary devices that I'm not necessarily as comfortable writing in. and that was a really proud moment for me. This connects to my metaphor of creating this skirt that I'm wearing, actually. I knew what I wanted to do. I had my plan set out very early from the beginning. I gathered my materials, my pattern pieces, fabric, but then very similar to both of these assignments, I wasn't confident in the next steps, and so I procrastinated and I didn't work on it even though I had all of the building blocks, and I could have very easily started when I had gathered all of my materials. My second standard is math with the ideal of mastery. First artifact was my 10th grade Math 3 final. Up until this point, I had accomplished all of my tests really well, mostly 4s across the board, and I knew what I was doing until this final. To set the stage a little bit, I was working really well through my test, and it was a long one, but I was confident in my abilities, and I'd gotten stuck on a couple of problems. But the real panic set in when Miss Gregg announced that we had 30 minutes left of the test, and I had more than a third of it not started, not even looked at. And I had to frantically go through the rest of the test trying to accomplish at least one question in each of the standards so that I could get a grade other than a 0. This is an image from the last page of my test. As we can see, I left 2 of the problems not started, and this was very common throughout the rest of the test. I either didn't finish or I hadn't even started the problems. And this resulted in grades like 2s and 3s, which is really good considering the circumstances, but for me it was really hard. I'm a very high achieving person, and to have the first really big failure that I experienced to be on a final was emotionally destructive. I didn't really know how to recover from it for a little bit. This leads me to my 11th grade pre-calculus final. I took that failure in 10th grade and really realized that I couldn't continue studying or taking tests the way that I'd normally done that, and I adapted and I improved. This is an image from one of the pages of the test. One of the main changes that I made was with my work ethic and test-taking abilities. In the boxes, it can be seen that I wrote down the time I started the question, and then I gave myself 5 minutes per question so that I could complete the question to the best of my abilities. And if I didn't finish it in those 5 minutes, I wrote a little note to come back to it later, and this allowed me to start all of the problems and finish the easier ones, to better manage my time, to prevent the panicked dash through the rest of the questions that was a huge part of my 10th grade final. And this resulted in good grades, and as the circles indicate, I got 4s on all of these standards, and this trend continued out through the rest of the test. I got 3s, 3.5s, and 4s mostly, which was a really proud moment to come back from that 10th grade final. These connect to the ideal of mastery, because to me, mastery means more than being perfect at it from day one. It means taking where you are and the knowledge you have and realizing your shortcomings and improving those. I feel like I mastered the skill of math because I learned what I needed and I learned how to improve, and I did that, which almost the act of figuring out how I wanted to improve, I'm more proud of than the comparable distance between the grades. These connect to my extended metaphor, which is the actual making part of this skirt. I once I'd started creating the skirt, I made a lot of mistakes. I don't think there's a single thing that I did that I didn't have to rip out with a seam ripper or re-put together in a different way because I'd done it incorrectly, or I'd missed some things, or I put it together and I didn't like it. But this, like with my math journey, this forced me to grow and learn what I wanted in the skirt. Even though I thought I had an idea of what I wanted, the actual process of working through it and improving forced me to really decide. My third standard is technology with the ideal of growth. My first artifact is from my 9th grade communications class. This specific assignment was for an informational speech that we did on the topic of our choice. I did fairy tales, and it was a research speech, so we were encouraged to take notes on the sources we looked at, but it was not mandated. It was just to help us with our speech and to have good sources. This is an image of my text, my evidence document. And in the boxes, we can see that I have different font sizes, and which is hard on the eye. And then my citations are also not only a different font size, but a different font type, and highlighted differently than the rest of my paper. And then I also have highlighting. As best as I can tell, the red indicates the title of the article, but I don't know what the green and the blue, and there's purple on this document too, I don't know what they mean. And there's no legend on the document to help me figure that out. So, and then just aesthetically, looking at the entire thing, it's a little bit jarring, and you can see the glaring inconsistencies, which I'm sure wasn't a problem at the time, but coming back, I have no idea what's happening. And this connects to my second artifact, which was in my senior year for a British literature essay. We were tasked to, we were writing an essay on Twelfth Night, and we had to, again, write notes. I did Cornell notes. You can see my citations are formatted correctly and very clear. My notes are organized, only the important information is included, and then they're highlighted based on my thesis and Q column over to this side, which makes coming back and understanding the notes very easy, and it's just aesthetically pleasing. These connect to the ideal of growth because I grew in how I presented information, the comprehension, not just content, but also organization. This connects to my metaphor because my final product, I'm very happy with it. It's not perfect, as you can see from the picture on the left, but I'm happy where it is. My so what, connecting to the ideal, to the standards of English, math, and technology, proved to me that I can do hard things, I can push myself out of my comfort zone, and I can do well. And which directly translates to my extended metaphor. I wasn't sure I was able to make this skirt, and it pushed me outside of my comfort zone, but I'm really happy with where it is, and there are still a couple of rough edges, but I'm happy with where I am coming out of high school. Thank you for your time. Is there any questions?
Can you explain your skirt a little bit more? Why is this skirt important to you? Like, is this like what you want to do after, or like is this a huge hobby? Tell me about the skirt.
I have always loved the idea of making my own clothing, and when I have a very specific opinion when it comes to how I want my clothes to look, and I wasn't finding that. And so I knew the length, style I wanted, and in an impulsive moment, I told my mom, let's go to Joann's and let's find the pattern, let's find the fabric, let's do this. And I'm really proud of it because I've done sewing in the past, and I really love it. I just don't put in the work as often as I would like to. And when I do, it's usually not for something that I will routinely use, but this is something I wear all the time, and I'm really proud of it.
I have time for one more question.
So if you were to give advice to an incoming freshman with all your experience in high school, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to ideally not procrastinate, but if that's impossible, develop an open communication with your teachers. That has saved me countless times. If you are open with your teachers and you ask questions, you will succeed. It does not, because in the act of asking questions and trying to learn more about how you can improve, the teacher sees that and they know where you are and they grade accordingly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Exactly 2 minutes to finish the sessions. Hey, Mr. Nelson, do you have experience with this clicker?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're good.
I wonder if we move that little base thing out of the way.
The base?
It seems like it's like a connection there.
Yeah. Is it a double click situation too?
But sometimes when I double clicked, it would move further than I wanted
Yeah,
it to, and sometimes
yeah.
it never moved.
It's not a double click.
Was that maybe a battery?
I think you just need to be closer. It does have a delay, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Would it help if we moved the computer like onto the?
Just
Or like we could use,
Yeah.
or you can use
It's
the.
this, right?
I think it's, I don't know, what's the word on it? Yeah, it's that. Okay, so let's move that out of the way. Okay. All right. Megan.
That's better.
That's better, okay.
It still has
Sorry.
some kind of a delay sometimes, but it's probably better.
Do you want me to text Josh and ask him?
For a better
So
clicker?
that little button here,
Could we have a better?
Point it
Oh,
at
that's
this.
such a small target.
but just point it in that direction. So mess with it a little bit. It does have a delay.
Nice. Solid.
Oh.
Okay. Play around for just a
Yeah,
couple
just-
minutes, you got. Well, you need to just right here.
Maybe try your left hand.
Okay, I'm gonna hope that it works well.
But you guys are being really flexible and like, I think they've been great examples of like, just being patient and yeah, you guys have been great with how it's not
Just always
going.
finding technical
Yes,
difficulties.
exactly, you guys are doing great. Okay, when you are ready. We feel ready, yes? Okay.
Okay. Hello, my name is Megan Kirkpatrick. This is my senior presentation. My metaphor is growing a garden, so I would like to take you through my life through rose-colored glasses. So, first, I'm going to be doing history with the ideal of growth. Next, senior essay with the ideal of making connections. Third, apprenticeship with the ideal of so what? And lastly, I'm going to conclude by adding personal applications. So, history with the ideal of growth. My first project is the Apache Indian Project. For this project, it was a teaching presentation that we were doing on an Indian Apache tribe. So, I would like to focus in on the overarching question. There we go. And I would like to focus on the economic, social, and political. So, in this class, we were given a black card that had the economic, social, and political, and it had definitions for classical liberalism and modern liberalism. And this was the basis of the class. Everything we did was based off of this.
And so as you can see, that is what we did. I got a 3 in this. It was proficient because we did use the basic, but we didn't go further than that. Second, so this is my Giver lesson plan. The Giver is a book, a dystopian book, about sameness and censorship. So this project was also a teaching presentation that we did for the class, and I would also like to focus in on the overarching question. So, how can an all-controlling, abusive, dystopian society be prevented, and what action can be taken today to ensure that freedom is preserved in our modern society? I would like to focus in on all-controlling and abusive, and freedom is preserved. So, I used the basis that we were given, the economic, social, and political, on the black card, and make it more nuanced. Specifically here, we focused in on political because it dealt more with the government, as you can see by all controlling, abusive, and freedom is preserved, which is what the government does. So, how does this connect to growth? The depth of understanding that I had. I understood more the basis of the class, and so because I understood that, I was able to go deeper, making it more nuanced. Complexity and nuance. And I was also able to take new perspectives. I was able to take the economic, social, and political and dive deep into that and learn each perspective nuanced and complexly. So how does this connect to my metaphor? The right conditions to grow. If we did not have the basis of economic, social, political on the black card, then I would not have had the right basis to get a good grade in that class or to understand what was going on in that class. Like if you take a tropical plant, it's not going to grow very well, if at all, in Idaho because that's not the right conditions for it. And then taking root. I was able to show through my Giver lesson plan that I was able to go a little bit deeper and take root into the soil. So next, I would like to focus in on my senior essay for the ideal of making connections. So, my artifact 1, I would like to focus on the thesis. The thesis is the overall view of the essay. It gives you an overall look into what you're going to be talking about. So, I was able to describe, so for this project, we were talking about a controversial topic, any controversial topic. Personally, I chose to do the behavior of Generation Alpha because it was a big topic online at that point. And so I was able to describe the symptoms, which is the destructive and non-functional behavior exhibited by Gen Alpha, able to go deeper by talking about the root cause, which is negligent parental style and the rise of social media. And then I was able to go even further making connections by talking about the solutions, which is being more present and keeping their child's screen time limited and advocating for change in social media algorithms and content. Next, I would like to talk about the macro. A macro is where you make universal connections and future predictions. So, in my macro, I talked about how the way children currently behave will form habits, which will go into their future selves, which will create an issue because they will fail socially and educationally as they grow up. So, and because of that, they are not learning how to use the internet properly, and they don't have a supportive environment to learn in, which is how those habits form. And eventually in this essay, in this macro, I talked about how they will grow up and become leaders in this country, and if they don't form proper habits, then they won't be able to run this country very well. So, connections. Making connections. I was able to make the most basic form of connections, which is a cause and effect, while also making even more nuanced connections by adding solutions and future predictions, such as how they will grow into future leaders. I was creating personal and universal analysis via evidence. I used my evidence to create the universal analysis, which was that they are going to become leaders one day and that they will not be able to function properly in our society if they keep this going. And also personal connections. Has this ever happened to me? What are other people's personal experiences with that? And then multiple perspectives. I was able to see it from an economic perspective, from a personal perspective, and from a professional perspective. So, connecting to my metaphor, my roots were reaching deep. I was able to make very nuanced connections. I was able to make universal connections and personal connections, which means that I was able to get all the nutrients that the plant needs via this evidence that I was researching for this project. And then starting to bud, I was able to make these universal connections that were going to be applicable to everyone. And so it kind of represented me coming out into the real world a little bit, but not totally. And then finally, I want to talk about apprenticeship under the ideal of so what. So for my first one is I want to talk about my informational interviews. These informational interviews were where we interviewed multiple people from either the same profession or multiple different professions. Personally, the one that I'm going to talk about today was a family counselor, but I also did other types of counseling. So I would like to focus in on, is it a match? So I'd like to point out that I said it is not a match. I did not like this career, and it helped me learn about myself because the stress tolerance aspect would detract from my productivity, and that just would not be a good work ethic if I was not productive. And also, I like one-on-one connections. I would not be able to do this family counseling because I like one-on-one, I like personal. And sometimes people can't get personal when there are other family members around, other people around. It needs to be a one-on-one. So my next one is my final reflection for my apprenticeship class. I did not do counseling. That just wasn't going to work because of HIPAA, which is a privacy policy within that. So I did mechanical engineering, cars, and I would like to focus in on how my education helped me in real life. There was expectations of timeliness, teamwork, and problem solving, which are very important in all fields, but especially mechanical engineering, because it takes a team to fix a car, it takes a team to build a car, and also you have to be timely. Customers are expecting you to be timely. They don't want to wait for their car. Cars are necessities for a lot of people, so you really need to be on time. And then some things are just, you need a team mind to solve them, because there are lots of things that you might not already know, but you need to be able to figure them out by problem solving. Come on. Oh, there we go. And then I would also like to point out that I also said this career was not for me. I just didn't really like the environment. It was stressful, and also I'm just not like very strong. I lifted a tire and they are heavy. But also, it just does not satisfy my work values of independence. I do like one-on-one connection, but I like being more independent. I'm not super team player. I definitely do work in a team well, but it's not my favorite thing to do. So what? I was able to figure out some of my college and career path. I know that I'm not going into mechanical engineering and I'm not going into psychology, even though that was originally what I thought I really wanted to go into. I was able to find out things about myself, personal preferences, such as my work value of independence and networking. even though I'm not going into those professions, I have those people to say, hey, she does work really well. And if I need to use them for like references, I know I can rely on them because I was able to work well within them. And yeah, so how does this connect to my metaphor? The flower has bloomed. I started to know what I want to do in this world, and I was able to start connecting my education in Compass to my real world experiences and bearing fruit. I was able to find my usefulness in this society. So even though I'm not going into either of those, which are very useful services, I know that what I am going into, which is pre-dietetics, and because there are lots of different fruit that have different usefulness. A lot of fruits have antioxidants, and so every profession has a usefulness in society, even if not everyone uses it. So, my applications. Finding community. I was able to find community through all of my education, through teamwork and these high expectations that required me to use teamwork and have timeliness and communicate with my teachers. Confidence academically and personally. Through this rigorous course, I was able to learn about myself and find confidence in myself and really know who I am and stick by my beliefs. But also I was able to secure myself academically. I know that I can do lots of things and do many different things. And then finally, real world experience and readiness. I was able to go out into the world through these courses and find what I liked, find who I networked, and was able to experience it and become ready for it through these rigorous courses. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Okay, we have time for one question.
What made you just sparked going into the pre-dietetics?
Honestly, it was just a feeling, because I really wanted to do psychology before that, but then I found out that it just wasn't my passion. I still like it a lot, but something about pre-dietetics, and there are similarities, is that the one similarity that is biggest is that helping people. I really like helping people and doing those kinds of services.
All right, thank
Thank
you. All right, James, you're out of your grade. No. I just have to take it. Shut up. Just a little right. Bailey? No. Okay, get a feel of that clicker a little bit. I am giving a kind of 20-second window of clicker time, but.
Just like life.
Good job.
There you go, seriously.
Right now.
Hello, my name is Bailey Morris, and this is my senior project. For my table of contents, I will first be talking about my apprenticeship with the ideal of so what, math with the ideal of growth, then history with the ideal of making connections, and my metaphor I will be relating to today is the piano. My first standard is apprenticeship with the ideal of so what, and I will be relating it to the keys of a piano. My first artifact is the apprenticeship contract from junior year. Now, our apprenticeship class was where we had to find an occupation we were interested in and then meet with someone and see if we would be able to spend roughly 40 hours with them supervising over us and under their work to see if it was a right career fit for us. Now, the contract was the first meeting with our supervisor to go over goals and expectations that we had for ourselves and for them to see how our apprenticeship could work together. Now, I had done mine in a 4th grade classroom, so here's a picture of my contract with my goals and expectations listed out. In that red box is one of my goals written out, and it says to be able to be helpful in the classroom through grading, organizing, and tutoring kids. Now, this was a reasonable expectation for my goal at that point in time with my ability of what I could do before going in and really having no prior knowledge of how to work with kids at that age. The other thing I will point out is the signed off approval from my supervisor, which meant that we were on the same page of what we would both be doing to help each other and to make this apprenticeship work. This also showed that I met the requirements of my actual apprenticeship assignment that I would later be turning back into my teacher. Moving along to my next artifact is the supervisor evaluation. Now, this came after I had finished my apprenticeship after the 40 hours, and it was given to my supervisor to reflect on how I had done in her classroom and what she had thought of our time together. So here's that evaluation filled out, and under the red box was just the strengths she listed. She had listed out that I had a positive attitude, flexible, willing to try, ask clarifying questions, and was punctual. Another thing I will point out is in the career standard development, she had marked them as all 4s in the mastery category. Now, both of these shows my success within the apprenticeship and my ability to do well working with kids and working in her classroom alongside her. To reflect a little bit about this, the relationship between these two artifacts, the first artifact, I was setting goals for myself, looking forward into the future with really no prior knowledge, and the second artifact, I was reflecting on those goals and seeing how I did, how I had made, if I had made those, which I ended up ultimately making those goals. To connect this to my ideal of so what, because of this apprenticeship, it was much more of an assignment as I am now going into the major of education when I go to college, and it was much more of just an assignment for me. I thoroughly enjoyed my time in the classroom and thoroughly enjoyed helping the kids and helping them learn and watching the teacher just teach the kids simply, and I loved it, and that is why I'm going into education now. And then to connect this to my metaphor of the keys of the piano. Now, there are several different keys on the piano, and they each make a different sound, and they all serve a different purpose for each song or whatever song you're playing. Now, like high school, there are several different paths that I could have chosen to take after high school, several within college and several outside of college. However, because of my apprenticeship, I was able to figure out which path would be right for me and what path I am ultimately going to be going down because of my apprenticeship. Moving on to my next standard of math and the ideal of growth, I'll be talking about the pedals of the piano. My first artifact is my first semester math test from junior year in pre-calculus, where I was being tested on literal equations, which is to basically isolate x and find out what x equals. So here's a picture of that first math test. And in that box, zoomed into the right, you'll see one of my problems worked out with several comments from myself and from my teacher as I struggled to perform the problem. This was due to this, I got a score of a 2.5, and it was due to a lack of preparation and due to not studying properly and making this material understand in a way for me to perform it later. This leads into my second artifact, which is the end of my first semester math test. So 4 or 5 months after my initial first test. And once again, I was being tested on literal equations. And here's a picture of that. Once again, being just to isolate what x was. Now, in the red box are the only comments, and they are from myself, and they are comments of praise, reaffirming that I had solved the math correctly and had the right process in improving my mastery. This resulted in the score of a 4. And it was because of practice and growth and success that I was able to correctly demonstrate this skill, and it was due to my preparation beforehand that changed the outcome of this test. Now, to reflect on this, to relate these two artifacts, they were the same, basically the same artifact. I was being quizzed on the same thing. The process wasn't any different. What I was being asked of didn't change. It was what I had simply done beforehand that changed the outcome. To connect this to my ideal of growth. While I did grow in the score of a 2.5 to a 4, I grew in my ability to properly study for a test and to prepare. The first test, it was the first test back from summer. I was probably a little lazy, thought I could do it without preparation, or simply had bad studying skills. Whereas the end of the semester, I found my groove, was able to prepare and make the material make sense to me. To connect this to my metaphor of the pedals. Now, the pedals on the piano are completely optional. They simply just change the sound that you play on the piano. It's not a requirement, it's just an option. And like my math test, it was an option if I wanted to prepare for it. It was an option if I wanted to study. It was an option if I wanted a good grade. And for that first test, I clearly didn't. I clearly was okay to not study or not take it seriously enough to work for a good grade. Whereas the second test, I put in the work, I chose to put in the hard work, and that resulted in the score of a 4. My bad. My next standard will be history with the ideal of making connections, and I will be relating it to sheet music. So artifact 1 is the Sun Tzu slides from sophomore year, where we were supposed to take the art of war from Sun Tzu and all of his war tactics and relate it to someone in our more recent history and to point out specific examples of Sun Tzu. Now I chose to relate it to Thomas Edison, and I pointed out specific examples of Sun Tzu, where I quoted him in saying, "Attack them where he is unprepared and appear where you are not expected." I then related that to Thomas Edison by saying, since Tesla was smarter, they weren't prepared for public attacks causing Edison to get ahead. While that may sound a little bit confusing in my sophomore language, what I was trying to convey to the class was how Sun Tzu could be seen in Thomas Edison's life, changing how we viewed both of them. This connection between these two sources created a deeper meaning for myself to understand the material and for the class to understand the material. My second artifact is the ism slides, also from sophomore year, where the assignment was to take isms in our world, so basically any word that ended in ism, and connect it to a media, either a song, movie, TV show, or a video game, and apply it. I've chosen to do Newsies, which was one of my favorite movies at the time, and connect it to social Darwinism. I pointed out that one of the forms in social Darwinism that we see in Newsies is with Hertz and Pulitzer, two big newspaper names that were each other's competition. Now, the application of the material to the outside tourists changed how they were viewed. Initially, I saw social Darwinism as something that we only talk about in science, as it only applied to like animals and nature and basically anything in the wild, and I saw Newsies as a fun movie where boys danced in the street. However, learning the material and applying it to something separate changed how I saw both of them. It changed how I viewed social Darwinism, and it changed how I viewed the Newsies. To reflect on this, the relationship between these artifacts, they both gave me practice and ability to demonstrate how I could make connections between what we were learning in class to what I was seeing in society. To connect this to my ideal of making connections, while these were for an assignment, it taught me how to take what I was learning in school and to apply it to my life and to change how I saw society and how it changed me. Now to connect this to my metaphor of sheet music. Sheet music is a list of, or a compilation of notes that you can play to make a song on the piano, but it's not required. You can look at sheet music by itself and you can look at the piano by itself. However, it's when you put them together and play the sheet music on the piano that you get something more meaningful and more impactful for the audience. Okay, some lessons that I have learned throughout high school. One is self-discovery. There have been several classes and several electives, extracurricular activities where I have learned who I am, what I like, what I don't like, and what I want to do with my life after high school. And that knowledge has affected my path and what I will be doing. My second lesson learned is that failure is key. While you can look at my math test as an example, there are several examples where if I got a 4 with no work, I wouldn't learn the process of studying, how to prepare, learning the material, and making it make sense to me. If I didn't fail, I wouldn't have the ability to have a growth mindset and perseverance for the grade that I wanted. Lastly, learning isn't face value. There have been several times where I've learned the material in class, maybe for a grade, but I've learned the material and then saw the world differently. There have been several classes where I've walked out and it changed the way I saw things. Learning isn't just for a grade, and it isn't just so I can pass a class. It changes how we see society, and it changes society itself. Learning isn't face value, and it can always be deeper and more impactful, as impactful as you make it. And I would connect this to my metaphor of the piano. The piano is a beautiful instrument, however, only when it's played. When it's not played, it frankly is just a wooden box with strings and pedals that may collect dust. However, it's when it's played that it is increased in value. Now, like a student going out into the world without knowledge or education, I wouldn't be of much value. However, it's because of my education and because of my knowledge that I've increased in value and can go out into that world and make a mark. Thank you. Questions from judges?
Bailey, can you go into more details about what specific area of education you plan on going into after high school?
I plan on going into elementary education, as that's what I did my apprenticeship in, and that is one of my classes that I took at CWI, and that is where my interest lies right now, although that is subject to change.
Okay. Is there a specific grade level that you're the most interested in? I know you did 4th grade.
Yeah, probably 3rd or 4th.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that age.
Nice.
So you talked a lot about your worldview. Can you give us a more specific example of something you thought and then you came to Compass, and because you learned that, it changed how you felt about the world?
I came to Compass in 4th grade, and my first initial thought of Compass was how hard it was and how painful it was to learn all the new things. But I think something that Compass has really taught me is that hard work is so much worth it, and learning how to put in hard work and how to put in perseverance for the grade that you want and for the outcome you want, really, not just a grade, is such a valuable skill that will carry me throughout life.
What did you learn through those failures? Like, so how did you, like, what were those specific things that you had to learn about your emotions, or about, like, what you physically or like need to do to overcome that failure?
I think one of them was sophomore year in basketball, where I had aspirations to make the varsity team, but that did not happen. I was put on JV. And that was really hard to go back to practice the next day and be okay and be happy with being on JV. It took a lot of time to be okay with that situation and realize it wasn't anything anyone else did. It was myself, and that I needed to improve individually so I could prove that I was worthy of varsity.
Thanks,
It says David's handling the clicker thing. He'll be able to.
Okay, Bailey did great with the clicker.
Yeah,
Bailey
I was
did
gonna
great.
say, maybe I just wanted to
She
warm
just
up.
made it look very jealous.
Did you press the buttons really well?
No, I just kind of didn't, I just pointed it at the computer and I just kind of didn't move it.
Just held it there.
Yeah, I just kind of held it there.
It's like a sweet spot, yeah.
Is that a mechanical pencil? The one on the right? I'll take a pen over this because this is like so dull. It feels like a brain.
I know, I'm looking for it. Does Nelson have a pencil sharpener here? Pencil sharpener. You've got like 2 more minutes. Find that sweet spot. Becky, was Taylor and Leah not here? They're right there. Oh, there you are. Okay. It's okay, no, it's fine. Just wait. Then more for you.
What the connection is, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Are you ready? We're ready? Okay. Ready when you are.
Hi, my name is Chloe Karchner, and this is my senior project. So for the introduction, the metaphor that I decided to do was process of making a cake, because I like to make different treats and stuff like that. So I thought it'd be fun to include it into my senior project. So for my first standard that I'm going to talk about is the elective, and I connected that to the growth ideal, and that's the process of remembering the past cakes you made, what you did good on, and how you can reflect from there. My second standard is technology and making connections, and that is like the mixing, the putting it all together, mixing ingredients and getting it ready to go in the oven. And then my third standard is growth mindset, and I connected that to the mastery. And that's progress, not perfection, realizing you have this awesome cake now, but it's not going to be perfect. Nothing can be perfect, but you can definitely see how you've improved over time. So for my first standard, elective and connected it to the growth ideal and reflecting on the past. So my first artifact is from my Spanish 2 class during my sophomore year, which was a homework log. We had to do a certain amount of homework outside of class, and we could do whatever we wanted just as long as it was Spanish. As you can see here, I got a grade of a 3 out of a 4, which is pretty good, but for an assignment like this, it can be really easy just to do and put more effort into it and to get that better grade. So as you can see, I put Duolingo every single day and learning conjugations every single day, when I was supposed to put more in depth of what I actually learned during those 20 minutes, as well as instead of Duolingo, I could have listened to some Spanish music, tried and read a book in Spanish, or even she said we could watch like part of a movie in Spanish, trying doing different things other than just Duolingo. My second artifact is also from that Spanish 2 class. It was a smash doodle. This is what it kind of looked like. In class, we would watch these videos about this scarf named Billy La Bufanda and these boots. It was just kind of a fun way to get people to learn more about these, help people learn more about Spanish. And so we watched this video about this scarf, and he was with these boots, and he had to try and find these boots. And we got to choose the ending of how he was able to do that. And we did really good on it, that our teacher hung it up at the course fair for other incoming students to see why they should and want to take Spanish too. So here's one of the sentences that we wrote in English. It says, "I was surprised that the boots were trapped on a tropical island without me knowing." So we kind of put the boots on this tropical island, and he was going to go rescue them and kind of help save them. To connect it back to my metaphor and remembering the past, maybe in the past you had a cake that you made and it didn't have a good foundation, so it kind of fell over, and like my homework I did at home, so you want to make sure you know what you did good on, and so you are able to improve on from there. So I was able to realize what I did wrong on that homework log,
And from there, I kind of reflected on why I was taking this class if I wasn't putting enough effort in. So I really tried from there to be like, well, I signed up for this elective, so let's try and put more effort into it and be wanting to take the class. So that helped me know what I needed to fix, put in more effort into the class, and also helped me be able to apply those skills later on and do better on tests and quizzes and other assignments and like that other project I showed. My second standard is technology, and I connected it to making connections, and that is the putting it all together, putting in ingredients, mixing it and stuff. This was from my sophomore year during a communication technology class. We had to research different career paths that we were interested in going into. This is what that kind of Google sheet looked like. We had to choose 2 careers and a ton of information about those different careers. So the 2 careers that I chose was a registered nurse and a travel agent, because that was what I was interested in being at the time. And then we also looked at the pay rate, so we would take 3 different sources and take the mean of those to see like kind of the average pay rate for those careers. We also looked at the required education. This was really helpful to see what I would need to study in college if I wanted to do these careers. So for a registered nurse, I would need a bachelor's degree or a BSN, which is a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. And then for a travel agent, it was kind of like up in the air if you wanted to do it right after high school, or if you could also go and get a bachelor's degree in it. And this really helped me see different careers that I would want to go to, and kind of helped me decide why I would want to be a nurse. My second artifact is also from communication technology, 10th grade. It was called Organized College Applications. We had to choose different colleges that we were interested in going into and other information about it to help us make a good decision when that time came. So the colleges I was interested in going into was BYU Provo, BYU Idaho, Boise State, and Utah State. We also looked at things such as the tuition, and this was really interesting to compare and contrast from other colleges, and also helped me look at the college like websites and see more of like what I wanted to learn and what I wanted to see going into college. So to connect this to my metaphor, it ties into the mixing of the ingredients and getting it ready to go in the oven. By comparing resources and other information such as pay rate, tuition, and much more, I was able to make connections to my own life and see where I would want to go to college and what kind of career I'd want to go into, as well as have good decision-making skills, looking at different information, and as well as making a good decision based off that information. And then finally prove why I wanted to do something. This helped me prove why I wanted to go into nursing for college, and it also helped me prove why I wouldn't want to go to a certain college anymore. So that would really helped me improve and see what I would want to do in my future. My final standard is growth mindset, and I connected this to the mastery ideal. And that's progress, not perfection, realizing you're not going to be perfect in everything, but you can definitely learn and grow along the way. Okay, so my first artifact was from my freshman year called Intro to Communication. It was a mock interview outline. So I had a partner, and we had to make a job interview situation and present it in front of the class, and that was we also had to create an outline of it so our teacher could kind of understand where we were during the presentation, what we were saying. So this is what that kind of looked like. It was very informal. We had just a whole bunch of text and then more text. We just put our names, and this student doesn't go to Compass anymore. We just put our names and what we were going to say, when we should have done more of like back and forth and made it more formal for our teacher to better understand. My second artifact was a North American Indian project. This was during my junior year. We had to research a North American Indian tribe and make an outline with it. This is what kind of the first page looked like. We made sure to have it really organized so it would help us see what we wanted on the slides later on. We also include like a correct MLA heading with our name so our teacher could see who was in the presentation, as well as the title of the presentation and when we did it. We also included things of what was going to be on each slide and who was going to talk on each slide or during each information and what we wanted on that slide, as well as like different questions we had to ask throughout the presentation that our teacher wanted us to do. So we all had that planned out so we could easily just put it into a Google Slides and practice that presentating. So to reflect from my first presentation outline, I know I could do better, so I tried to stay positive and keep that growth mindset and practice outlines for other presentations. And I definitely improved making those outlines, but knowing such as in a cake, it cannot be perfect, but you can make a lot of progress over time, like I did with my outlines. These partner presentations helped me to communicate with others, see how working with others would work and how to talk with others so we can all come up to a good consensus. It also helped me be more organized with the outlines and also in my life with certain assignments to help me better understand what would be going on and things like that. As well as have good flexibility. Working with people can be a little difficult, so we wanted to make sure that, I wanted to make sure that we would be able to communicate with others, see what we could all agree on, and things like that. So to conclude, assignments that I've shown today and many others have helped me to better have social skills. Definitely struggled with that as a freshman, and now I can better say that I'm more willing to communicate with others throughout class. I have also learned good ways to make decisions, especially in this past year, on knowing what I want to do once I graduate, as well as setting goals. We have done this in many classes for an assignment or in the class, as well as for sports. We do it a lot at this school and has helped me see some of my own personal goals and how to achieve it. The big one though has been knowing that failure is okay, which has been taught to me since my freshman year, and it's like as long as you're trying to progress, it's okay to fail. Like the process of making a cake by reflecting on the past and trying to progress from the skills you have now, I have seen throughout my high school experience how much I've been able to achieve and confident that little freshman me would be very proud of what I've been able to achieve these past 4 years. Thank you. Any questions?
Are you still gonna go into nursing?
Yep.
Where are you gonna go?
I'm going to go to BYU, Idaho. I want to get a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing and then work as just like a nurse in the hospital and then hopefully go on to be a travel nurse.
Oh, nice, very nice.
What have you learned about working in groups? So you've done obviously a lot of projects and different assignments with groups. So what have you learned from working with?
There's definitely like a lot of positive and negatives. I definitely feel like working with groups, I learn more about like the assignment. It definitely helps me, but also sometimes it can be hard because some people won't want to do all the work or some people will. So just like making sure everyone's on the same page and coming together and working on the assignment together as a group.
If there was something that you maybe wish you didn't do, like, what is your biggest regret? And why is that your biggest regret? What did you learn from it in high school?
High school?
If you don't have one, it's okay.
I think during my end of sophomore year, I decided to take pre-calculus, and that was like very challenging. I didn't know, like, I wouldn't say I just wasn't ready for it. So I decided to go back into the other classroom, college prep mathematics, and that really helped me to get the mastery of those standards, and then also helped me to realize what class I need to take this year to help go into nursing. So that's why I'm taking statistics. So I'd say that.
Well, that's good. Oh, yeah.
Oh, does it work so much better?
Oh, I'm so
Janelle.
excited. Lucky you. Lucky you.
It does sometimes still have a delay, but I would still point it this way.
Okay.
The backwards works a lot better than the forwards.
Which is nice.
Okay, we do have a full like
Let's do
a
the
full
presentation
3 minutes.
reverse.
So.
Okay.
There we go.
No.
So about 2.5 minutes.
Okay. I don't know what to do for 2.5
Yeah.
minutes. You can look at my lovely clip art.
Yeah.
Collage. I don't have any background music to use.
Yeah, we should have like elevator music between each like presentation. There you go. This is loud.
Is it a mustache or a smile on the peanut butter?
This is
I
finally
think
my
mustache.
understanding of your brother.
I think this is a smile.
That's a big.
Because there's this guy and then there's a blue one, and they both have this cute little thing.
What if they both have
And if it's
mustaches?
pink and blue, usually like girl and boy, right? Girls usually don't grow mustaches. I'm going with smile. Give it my context.
Good job with your qualification where you don't usually have mustaches.
New
Yes,
ones.
and yeah, because
Changes as you get older.
I had a classmate that said he would sing peanut butter jelly time as I started my presentation, but he's not here, so he can't sing.
Kylie, did you guys try to bring Kylie along? Kylie went to Stevens.
My mom is here, and we're just skipping class to be here.
See, we need a glass of wine.
You come in to grade as well?
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so when she's ready, we're ready.
Okay.
Okay, ready when you are.
Good morning. My name is Janelle Thurgood, and this is my senior project, where I'll compare my high school experience to a peanut butter and jam sandwich. So for my first standard that I'll go over is English, which is the jam of my peanut butter and jam sandwich. And the second standard is technology, which is the peanut butter. And the third standard is bread, which is apprenticeship. So first, I have English, which is growth. And this is the jam of my peanut butter sandwich. So my first artifact is my creative short story from 9th grade. In 9th grade, we read Fahrenheit 451, which is a cautionary tale. And so we wrote a creative short story that used the cautionary tale skills that we had learned. And I'd always thought of myself as a natural creative writer. So for this assignment, I didn't put in very much effort. I just kind of wrote. As you can tell, the title of my short story is Title of Short Story. And that really encapsulates the entire effort that was put into this short story. It was very last minute, and I didn't try to apply any of the skills that we had learned in class. My second artifact is my creative satire assignment that I wrote in 12th grade. For this assignment, we were learning about satire, and specifically about criticizing careers using sarcasm and satire. For this assignment, I read outside sources and examples that the teacher had posted, and that really helped me to write my creative satire writing assignment. As you can tell, my title is a country singer, which is creative and purposeful in that I wanted to encapsulate the entire country singer occupation. Here's an example of my satire. He attempted to pull it onto his head, but the cap barely spanned the crown of his head. Perhaps it was simply a physical manifestation of his ever-growing intelligence. And this is a great example of my satire. It was very creative and purposeful in that it was intentional and consistent with the directions. I love jam, and one thing I love about jam is that it's very versatile. When I was little, I had one jam that I loved, and that was my mom's homemade strawberry jam. But as I grew older, I experimented with different types of jam. I tried orange marmalade, I even had red pepper jam, which was very interesting. And this is a lot like my writing experience. I experimented with different flavors of writing. I branched out and was willing to try outside of what I had usually done. Next, I will go over technology, which I connected to the ideal of making connections, and this is the peanut butter of my peanut butter and jam sandwich. My first artifact is my Smiling Solicitor spreadsheet that I made in 11th grade, and this is my pride and joy of high school. I spent over 40 hours of my own free time creating this spreadsheet. So the Smiling Solicitor is a fake company that I made. I was in Business Applications 101 at the time, where we were learning how to use Excel spreadsheets. And I loved it. I loved making equations. I loved changing the color of the cells. And that's what I did on this spreadsheet. As you can tell, I have my inter-page calculated analysis. These cells I also had a projected income calculation for all of my employees of my fake business that I created by creating equations that took the monthly income as well as a projected commission to make a projected yearly income. I love spreadsheets so much, and I wanted to find everywhere that I could use them. And as I got into 12th grade, I began applying for scholarships. And I saw this as a great opportunity to use, yet again, another spreadsheet. And this one's not as professional as my Smiling Solicitor, and nor did it take me 40 hours, but it was very useful when I was applying for scholarships. As you can tell, I applied the skills that I had learned by making spreadsheets in my color-coordinated cells, where I would enter if I had submitted it or not. It would change a color, so if I had submitted it, it was green. If I hadn't submitted it, it was yellow. And then I also had color coordination for the decision on the company's end, whether they accepted or didn't. It would turn green for yes, red for no, or somewhere in the middle if they were still deciding. Peanut butter is so interesting. Someone took peanuts and ground them up and turned them into peanut butter. Peanuts themselves are good to eat straight, but peanut butter is used in so many different things. We make sandwiches with them. We use them in Thai food. It's so interesting. And this is like my skills that I learned in business. They're widely applicable for both my career and my everyday life. I plan to go into business marketing, where I will use spreadsheet and Excel very often. I also use this in my everyday life. Currently, I have a monthly budget that I use in a spreadsheet that helps me keep track of my income and my spending, which will be very helpful when I go and have more financial independence and take on more financial responsibility. My third standard is my apprenticeship, which is so what, and I'll connect this to bread. So here I have my apprenticeship contract that I did with an elementary school teacher in 11th grade. This was at a small elementary charter school, and since it was so small, I was able to wander around and explore different classrooms. I was able to go to a first grade classroom, I was able to see a 5th grade science classroom, and I was even able to go to special education, which was really interesting. One of my goals for this apprenticeship was to compare and contrast various teaching methods used with different age groups. And as I went around and saw the different teaching styles, I did notice different methods used with different age groups, But one thing that I found in common was their passion for teaching. Each of these teachers, I could tell, cared about their students, and they cared that their students learned, and that was reflected in the way that they taught their students. My second artifact is a apprenticeship contract that I did with a small business owner. And this was a local pumpkin business that I apprenticed under. She ran the business mostly by herself, and she had a few employees. One of my goals was to learn basic management skills. And I had the opportunity to work alongside her, and I saw her deal with conflicts with employees, and I also saw her go every day and water her flowers every morning at 6 in the morning, and I was able to do some of that with her as well. And one thing that I noticed is that she had work ethic and motivation, and that was because she loved her company and she loved what she was doing. I personally am not that passionate about pumpkins, but after apprenticing under this lady, I learned so much more about pumpkins to the point where I can now tell you different pumpkin varieties, and I find some passion in my pumpkins. And this is like the bread of my high school career. I don't know if you've ever tried to make a sandwich without bread, but it's very hard. Bread is the foundation of a sandwich, similar to how passion is the basis of any education or any career that I will go into. I noticed the teachers who cared for their students, and they used their passion as a reason to get up and go to school every day and to deal with students that didn't want to be there. I also noticed how the small business owner that I apprenticed under, how that's how she got up out of bed every day to go water her flowers, and how she picked pumpkins for hours upon hours upon hours. As I go into my future, it's really important for me to have passion for whatever I do. As I've been in high school, especially this year, I've noticed how I've grown in my personal passion for what I'm doing for school projects. When I was a freshman and sophomore, I did assignments to get a good grade. As I became a junior and senior, I found the fun in the assignments that I was doing. For example, this project, I have loved working on this presentation, and I've been passionate about the things that I've been writing about. And I know that as I go into my future career, that it's important for me to have passion for whatever I do, because that will be the reason that I get up and I go to work every day. In conclusion, the English was the jam, which was trying new things. The peanut butter was making connections and applying skills, and the bread was passion. What I love about sandwiches is that if you can make a peanut butter and jam sandwich, you can make a deli sandwich. And if you can make a deli sandwich, you can make a grilled cheese sandwich. And if you can make a grilled cheese sandwich, it goes from there. In my high school career, I did lots of different assignments. When I was in 5th grade, I wrote a 5-page essay, and I was terrified to write my 5-page essay. I didn't think I would be able to do it. But I eventually wrote my 5-page essay. And then I got to high school, and writing a 5-page essay isn't that difficult when you're in high school. And I've done things in high school that I have found difficult, but I've also been able to grow from them. I've pushed myself out of my comfort zone and proved to myself that I can do hard things. And that's what I need to remember from my high school experience. When I'm 36, I will look back at some of the experiences I have had in high school, and I will think that it was rather simple, but I will look at the young woman that I was and see that she pushed herself to do things that she didn't think was possible, and that she did hard things. So when I'm 36 and I am dealing with problems that I think are beyond my capabilities, I will look back at my high school experience and I will see that I can do hard things if I push myself out of my comfort zone, use my skills that I need, and have passion for what I do. Thank you.
Question? I have one. So I love how you explained that finding passion and making those personal connections to your assignments is what really motivated you later on in your high school career. Were there any instances, like in those moments, like junior, senior year, where you did run into an assignment that you weren't passionate about? And then what did you do to persevere and do well on that?
For sure. There were assignments that I didn't want to do. But one of the things that I noticed is that as I start to put my own creative twist on things, it helps to give me motivation to do it. So with assignments that I thought were very basic or considered busy work, as I put my heart into it, and I do it in a sense that I want to learn something or in a sense that I want to be proud of what I accomplished, then I tend to do better on it. I had an essay that I didn't want to write because I thought it was kind of boring, but then as I was intentional about my research and intentional about creating my thesis, I found that it was very applicable to what I was doing in high school, and that really helped me to write the essay.
I have a question. So you talked about passion, but what would you say is your advice to, let's say, incoming freshmen or even sophomores if they don't have a passion for school? What can they do?
You can hang the threat of if you don't do well in high school, how do you expect to do well in college? The other thing is that high school is like a boot camp. The things that you learn here and the character that you build at high school is going to set the foundation for what you do later in life. So if they think about their careers and what they want to do in the future and who they want to be as a person, they need to start training that in high school. And that can help motivate them to put more effort into their schoolwork, and that it's a reflection of what they'll be in the future.
So kind of piggyback on that, reflecting like your first essay that you showed us, right? Title being title. And then getting to something richer and deeper. What was part of that journey? Like, how can I help later students change from title to actually caring? I mean, because they're usually not going to be passionate about school.
Yeah.
We try.
Yeah. I think one of the things is explaining how it's applicable to their life. And maybe a short story isn't seen as applicable to right now, but if you explain it to them in a sense that you will express yourself in the world, and this is a good way to learn how to express yourself. And so creating a title for your story is part of expressing that. And it's also part of putting pride into the work that you're doing.
Great job, Janelle. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so the over presentation is 10, and then 2. Okay, so this is our first canvas. So do I just press this then?
Yeah, and then there's going to be a little button underneath if answer purple.
This one?
No, right.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. We've got like 2.5 minutes, so take a few last breaths, you're good.
I'm so scared this one's not gonna work. I have so many little arrows of things I want to point at
For your
for my presentation, so I'm hoping that the clicker is on
It
time.
seems like that one
I hope.
is going better.
I hope.
So. want me to grab it for you?
That was really something, thank you.
Yeah, I know, I'm getting to be dull over here.
Dull pencils and I do not get along. Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. Ready when you are.
I didn't start. Hello, my name is Gimmer Davis, and this is my senior presentation. So this, oh, no, it's not working. Okay. To start off my table of contents, we're going to start with history, move on to English, end with apprenticeship, and then we'll have a little conclusion at the end. So as I said, my first standard is history, and I connected it to the ideal of making connections. My first artifact is from my 11th grade U.S. history class, and we did a Giver presentation. The purpose was to create this teaching presentation of The Giver, which was a coming-of-age story about a young boy named Jonas and his attempt at leaving a dystopian society. The requirements were to split into groups, and we were each given a few chapters that we were to create a presentation to teach our class. For this one specifically, we took a quote from the book and we separated it into 3 different sections, and we analyzed these pieces of the text. So for the first question, we asked why the lack of uniqueness made it difficult for him to leave his home. For the second question, we analyzed how personal experience differs based on having someone explain it to you versus experiencing it firsthand. And the third question questioned their society and why they thought a lack of emotion would create the perfect society. This presentation created allowed for me to have a lot of collaborative research and planning skills, because we had to make a presentation that was both engaging to readers but also something that they were familiar with. My second artifact was from 12th grade American Government class, and it was my NHD project. NHD stands for National History Day, and it's something that my school has competed in for several years. And this year, my purpose was to create an essay that highlights the turning points in history, and I chose the Stonewall Riots. And the Stonewall Riots were a series of riots and fights that took place in Greenwich Village, New York City in 1969 to protest homophobia and fight for LGBTQ rights. I decided to specifically talk about the legacy that it left behind, and I focused on the fact that Barack Obama designated a national monument at the historic site of Stonewall to honor what had happened, but also the fact that the 2020 presidential candidate one of them was gay. And that would not have been possible if it weren't for Stonewall. Again, I said that there were a lot of organizational and focus skills, because there was a lot of information that I had to sort through, and I had to make sure to stay concentrated so I knew where I wanted to focus the essay. The ideal that I connected this to was making connections, just because both assignments pushed me to make new perspectives. For the first assignment, I got to play the teacher, which isn't something that we had really done before, and I was able to lead my class. And for the second assignment, I was able to understand why people fight for certain causes. As for my metaphor, I talk about going on a hike, and the first part of going on a hike is gathering your materials. So that counts as packing what you need, wearing the right clothing, all of that. It's the prep work, just like how research and planning is the prep work for completing your assignments. As for my second standard, I chose English with the ideal of growth, but I changed it to growth mindset. My first artifact is from my 11th grade English composition class in semester 1. We had 2 teachers for both classes. And the purpose of this one was to write a narrative essay about an event that you faced in school. Since I've only ever been at Compass for the past 13 years, I decided to talk about my experience throughout school. But I didn't do very well on this one. My feedback was that I lacked direction, and I was too caught up in the feelings and emotions of what I was trying to say rather than actually explaining. You can see here I have 4 different instances of this. The first being an unnecessary detail with a bottle of hand sanitizer. The second being my teacher giving me a warm welcome. And then I emphasized the fact that I was terrified of my mom leaving me. And the second one was re-emphasizing that again about how I was so scared. I ended up getting a 78% on this essay,
but I took the feedback and I saw that this was an opportunity for growth. Artifact 2 was also from 11th grade, but it was semester 2 of the same class. And this one was a free write with the topic of my choice. And I saw this as a redo because my last grade didn't quite sit well with me. I wanted to make sure that this time I stayed focused and that I added information on the psychological effects of school that kids face on a daily basis. And I wanted to incorporate the psychological aspects because I wanted to make sure that I didn't copy myself and subsequently plagiarize. So you can see here I talk about human development and how it can be described as growth from human beings from conception to death. And then I talk about the obstacles that many kids go through, such as peer pressure, body image issues, eating disorders, mental health battles, and self-confidence struggles. And I took all of those examples and elaborated on them throughout my essay. This was to prove to myself, excuse me, that I can push myself to do better, and I did just that by getting a 95% for just small errors here and there. The ideal that I connected these artifacts to was a growth mindset because I demonstrated that I was able to take my feedback and I could turn it into a positive experience. And I was able to prove that criticism can be accepted if you're able to work hard and change it for the next time. As for my metaphor, the second step is actually going on the hike. Most people usually give up here and they're scared of trying for the fear of failure. But it's better to try and fail than to never try whatsoever. And in 9th grade, we were taught to fail forward, which is taking your failures and using those to push yourself to do better the next time. My third standard is apprenticeship with the ideal of so what. This first artifact is, again, from 10th grade. It's my apprenticeship class, and the purpose of this assignment was to write about our experiences with our apprenticeship. I had the opportunity to work at Idaho Sports Medicine Institute with physical therapists and physical therapist assistants, and their job at Idaho Sports Medicine Institute was to rehab college athletes who were either recovering from surgery or they were helping the college athletes at BSU who were dealing with pain and soreness and they wanted to fix it before it became a bigger issue. Here I was able to take an inside look at the job and I could picture what a typical day would look like. Danica was the first person I worked with. She was a physical therapist assistant, and she really let me tap into that role of being a physical therapist assistant because she encouraged me to be a part of the evaluations, asked my opinions when it came to the exercises and the patient's treatment options. And I thought that physical therapy assisting was very interesting because it didn't take as much schooling. So I was going to be able to get into the field a lot earlier. And while I did consider that to be a very interesting thing, I wanted to keep my options open because I was only there for 40 hours and I didn't want to get set on one thing straight away on the first day. So I also worked with Bailey McDevitt, who was a physical therapist. We were very close in age and we had a very similar personality, which I thought was really good because I could see her interactions with patients and understand that they're very similar, and that is how I envisioned myself talking to patients if I decided that I wanted to be a physical therapist. She really taught me that it is okay to keep your personality while still maintaining a professional stature, because she was very genuine and authentic with her clients. She didn't have that like awful customer service voice and like that fakeness in her tone. She was very personal, very one-on-one, and you could tell that she really cared for her patients. As for Artifact 2, the purpose of this one was to research jobs that we apprenticed at and reflect on our apprenticeship as a whole. And I had chosen physical therapy. The purpose and the point was to make sure that it was actually a good fit. And after research and looking at the job description and the tasks that were assigned to physical therapy, I knew that it was a fit for me. The job description was to relieve pain, increase strength, and improve or correct disabling conditions. And the tasks were to perform and document an initial exam, and that was something that I was very interested in. I've always been people oriented, and I've always wanted to help people. So I knew that this was going to be a really good fit for me. I also, when reflecting, I also mentioned that it felt very fast-paced, but it was just like another Tuesday at school, and I was adjusted almost immediately, just because I've been used to this environment and I understood how it worked, so it was a very quick adjustment for me to work with them. I also mentioned how I was going to have to take an anatomy and physiology class sometime in the next 3 years, and keeping this in mind, I was able to do that while applying for colleges. As for the so what, I was able to take this experience and look at the big picture. Yes, I did have to get class credit for this, but I was also able to plan for my future. I was able to get a glimpse of what could be for my future, and I thought that that was very valuable. My metaphor, and the third step of going on a hike, is reaching the peak, finishing, accomplishing your goals. This apprenticeship was an opportunity for me to step into the real world and to find a career that I was very interested in and that I was passionate about. And I was able to do just that, and it's something that I'm very proud of. For a conclusion, I understood that the 3 steps of gathering materials, starting the journey, reaching a peak, is just like going through the motions at school. If you're going to gather your materials, you need to prep and plan. If you're going to start your journey, you have to take the first step and you have to be okay with your failures. And once you get to the peak, you understood that you failed forward in order to accomplish your goals. The thing that you have to keep in mind, though, is that you can't always finish and get to the top without preparing and starting, and that if you're on the right track, you'll be ready and willing to take on the future challenges. Thank you.
Cameron, you pointed out some awesome things that you have learned through all your artifacts, and you really focused on like the good things. I didn't necessarily hear you say some of your failures, so that is a really great place to learn connections to your real life and growth mindset and your so what. So what was maybe a failure that you had in these last 4 years, and how did you overcome that?
I did briefly mention that when I was talking about English. English has always kind of been, it's something I'm definitely passionate about, but I've always kind of struggled with, getting the word count or getting it to say how I want it to say, or when we're supposed to do something like a poem or some sort, that's always been super difficult. And I think that just being able to adapt and be flexible in certain situations and learning that it's okay not to do your best, that's really important.
What kind of sounds like physical therapy is your interest? Walk me through what's your plan there.
So I am going to BSU with a major in kinesiology with an emphasis in sports medicine, or exercise science, sorry. And then I'm going to double minor in psychology and physical therapy.
And the hope is to?
I want to work with college athletes, not necessarily at Idaho Sports Medicine Institute, but somewhere along there helping athletes, whether that be at the college level or at the professional level.
My question is, it sounds like you kind of knew what you wanted to do all through high school. You still seem like you really pretty much know what you want to do. What would you say to students that are going through high school but have no idea what they want to do?
Well, it may look like I have everything together. I would say probably a year ago, I still had like 8 ideas of like, I could be a marine biologist still, or I actually wanted to be a chiropractor before I went to physical therapy. I think that actually having my apprenticeship really solidified, like, maybe not chiropractic, just because it's a doctoral program, and so it takes forever to get there. And so physical therapy seemed like something that was achievable in a shorter time span, but also something that I would be interested in, because I'd be working one-on-one with people, I'd be able to help them, and I'd be able to work with college athletes, or just athletes in general, which is something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I would definitely tell them to not put it off. Like, don't procrastinate and be like, I'll just wait till we have my apprenticeship class, or I'll just wait till I get to college and I'll figure it out. Like, definitely have some sort of game plan as early as possible. I kind of started researching at the end of middle school, kind of beginning of high school, of just like what I wanted to do, mostly because I had anxiety and I was like, I don't want to go off to college, I'm so scared. But being able to do that, and I'm much more comfortable being like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing and I have this plan. If the plan doesn't work, that's fine, I can change it. But there's nothing wrong with changing your plans.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great, Dr. Moran. Okay, we have a 15-minute break before our next one.
Should I write down your
Don't talk for 10 minutes straight.
I've just been trying to like sleep on that, and like I just want to say like, because like I don't like to be super.
I know, and I'm always probably a little bit high.
Yeah, but the thing is like, well, I got so
Yeah, you should have been doing like halfway here.
yeah.
It was just like,
That's super weird. We have to use
the new one is, yeah, we're good. Everything's been fine, no hiccups other than like you're kind of being annoying, and then I was a little bit flexible for like 20 seconds on their side, but.
Yeah.
Did you stop them?
No, I just only did one question. So I kept it under 50. But I wrote, so I think I might be hearing one like with a specific topic on, but mine I wrote.
Good. Yeah. And I'm so unhappy. Over time, for sure. I have a tendency to focus on the negative stuff and try to focus on the positive. Yeah. I don't want to end up totally.
Any questions on this? Or are you good? You've been doing this for years, so I feel like you're pros. You don't need me. Okay.
No, she got me after clarification.
Okay.
You'll start with your second bag. No, I think better off if you just start by saying, hey, I want to think about it's like this year, and you compare it with like a 9th grade. And then in first grade, you're happy about like how you work.
She's probably trying to make me feel better or something like that. No, I'm doing it perfectly. I know, I assume you are. I'm trying to like do their schedule, their opportunities, and like we're not. Good. So, yeah. Okay. That's what I had done too, except that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I will find it.
I have an extra.
Okay, I swear, you know, it sounds like I swear songs and my cable took it.
This is exactly why I have extra.
Thank you. You know, I never lose papers, but I just swear took it.
Never say never.
Thank you.
Never say. I'm gonna say yes. I think I'm gonna essentially give them commit statements for next year.
Oh, so you are, we are
Yes.
turning it in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
I'm gonna take a picture of it though, 'cause that.
you can do the
this
same.
stuff.
So yeah, essentially,
Oh,
like on Tuesday, I'm gonna have you take a picture and put it in your Google Drive, and I'm gonna physically give you commit statements.
Well, the only thing I'm worried about is like going through Google Docs for stuff from like freshman year. 'Cause I can't find stuff if it's like a year old. It just like
That's a problem.
It is a problem. I don't know how to like.
Yeah.
Go back to
I think you need to do a better job than like freshman advisory, like prepping organization.
I think I probably have like 200 stuff in Google Docs.
Oh, sure. I'm with time.
From fourth grade to I deleted from fifth grade. I wish I had it though. It's all I want to be looking back on fifth grade stuff.
But some of the stuff is like just.
Oh, it's like
freshman and maybe sophomore year.
But some of the stuff is.
Totally lost. I had no idea. This pops up.
We had to write a, what are they called?
I don't know.
They're like.
No, it's the
They teach you a lesson. They like teach you a lesson, but it's like a poem, moral story or something.
I mean, poems teach you a lesson. A kids show?
No. And it was like about this like crane that like gets eaten by like a tracker, but I like the way I said it was like so gross.
What was the lesson?
It was like because you like tricked this dude and then he was like, oh, there's like a coin in the tree and then.
Also, my parents better not come to my presentation. I'll make me way more nervous.
Yeah.
I think that made me worse.
Okay, low-key,
Yes.
I love giving Google Slides presentations. Yeah, there's something about it. Like, I hate presentations. No, communications technology were arguably some of the best classes. What one? Communications and communications technology. Oh, I love communications technology because it's pretty much like, yeah, just make like a 10-minute presentation about like whatever you want. And so you're just like, oh, I feel like you'll put in how to say photos and talk about like stuff I like.
I would go like crazy making it, and then once I got, I started like shaking. I'd get nervous. I'd be like, I'm not
You know what was so hard? It was the how-to presentation.
That was hard.
I was like, my presentation was a group presentation. No, I was fine. It was a group presentation. And one we did was paper airplanes. And then, but it was hard because you had to like do it really precise. And when you're up there like presenting, you're trying to do it quick and like, you know, just the kind of shit. They all turn out horrible. But I mean,
He's wearing the same diaper size as Richard. He's in 3.
Just like, I like giving it too, but I also give it a little nervous.
I feel like I was telling Bonnie, I think the girls are bigger than Brooks. I feel like as soon as the kids, he is so little, and I feel like as soon as they start getting mobile, it's like they just, and I feel like they were.
Yeah, we should have one
and
more.
because they've kind of been a little bit dependent, so I'm like, Brooks runs 24/7, so I'm like, I can't feed him enough. I don't even know what to do that has like all this full fat stuff.
If
We don't do any low fat in our house. We do full everything. I know.
You just get shoved ghee in his mouth.
Yeah, right.
Bacon fat, just scoop it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Cal, he's ready to like, I've been kind of eating myself in the bottle, like I had a stash, but like I'm kind of working into my stash, so I'm giving myself a little bottle. I just started kind of getting him some avocado.
Yeah.
Potatoes,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, he's gonna be an eater.
Yeah.
He's gonna be an eater.
It took us a long time to like food. He didn't have an issue with it, he just never really wanted it. Now it's like I have to kind of like stop him, like, we gotta sit down and have dinner. Because he just wants to play all day, so I'm like, but I mean, Mitch and I are both pretty small, but I'm like, he's like comparing him to like kids at the park, and I'm like, he can, to me, he's smarter than everybody else, but I'm like, he is so tiny.
Same with Ricky, yeah, like.
Yeah, she is.
She'll Yeah, like, have you been to the Totally Park?
No, that's
It
right
is
by
like
Chaparral.
3 levels
Oh,
up.
yes, I have.
And she's like, going, and me, I'm like, but I'm not gonna stop her.
No.
And then there's like a 7-year-old like, I'm nervous, I
Yeah.
don't wanna climb up there. I'm like, it's just going
Yeah.
on. Okay.
It's so funny to see. I always thought that was more of like a second child thing. Brooks is so cautious. Anything that is moderately dangerous. And I am way more, surprisingly, Mitch is way more nervous than I am about stuff.
Oh, these two, yeah.
We have a retaining wall in our backyard, and like I want him to try and like walk
Yeah.
it, and he's pretty good at like walking on a curb and doing stuff. But I'm like, go fall, go do stuff.
Mitch is like,
I know he's like, pussy. I'm like, he's fine. He needs to try. But we have one park in our neighborhood that he's able to do all by himself. But there are so many things at playgrounds that are just so not safe. Like,
I know, who
thought of
invented
this?
yes.
And
Like,
wood chips.
yeah.
Totally Park has wood chips. Like, I hate wood chips.
Ricky straight up like, we were
We're talking about our kids.
I
They can listen.
We were at Fuller Park, and she'll go on the big one there too. But the other day she was climbing up just a ladder. The ladder kind of spins a little bit, and I was like, just maybe from here to Wendy. But she straight up like let go and like went from this high up, and I was like, but I hugged her and held her. She cried. Like she didn't land on anything. She just straight up kind of like.
Yeah.
And then she was like, okay, and like went up it again. I was like, okay, girl.
I know, it's always something. I swear Brooks always has a bruise, which that's how I was too, but I'm like, he is so cautious. Like, oh, I don't know if it's my mom, because like he's with her so much when I'm at work.
Maybe.
I'm like, Mom, let him.
Or it's just an temperament.
Yeah.
They're all different.
I know, yeah. He's definitely not his dad, thank goodness. I can't handle him. I got one, that's plenty. It's fun to see though, like, try to push him. He's just so quiet. He'll be 2 in August. Yeah, he's always been, he's just an observer. Like, we'll go, I was telling my friend, I'm like, I think we're almost ready to go to like a trampoline park. He loves, we have like a little trampoline. But it's like as soon as there's gonna be other kids, he would genuinely rather just sit and watch them. Like, they're so much more fun to just watch than like actually do.
She's a people observer, but
Yeah.
she'll do it. Yeah, like at the park, if like new kids come up, she'll just like literally stop in the middle of the park.
It's scary. Yeah,
But
that's
also
how
I'm like,
Brooks
that's
is too.
me. I'm such an observer.
Oh, I am too.
I'm not
too.
a like, let me come up to you and
Yeah.
chat. I'm very much a risk. That's
Yeah.
like she's like always swinging at her. I'm like, I haven't really like said anything these last like 30 seconds. Like I'm such a quiet person.
Yeah.
I'm like, oops.
Which I think is fine. I told Mitch I'm the same way. In fact, I was literally so shy until I had to go to a new school in 8th grade. And I'm like, I'm doing fine. In fact, I speak in front of 30 students every day, all day. Like, it's fine. Because Mitch is like, why doesn't he want to like talk? Why doesn't he? It's crazy. Like, we'll go to Mitch's family. I know, but then we'll go home and he's like chatty. And I'm like, why weren't you chatty with them? But it's just, he's just absorbing everything. And I'm like, I don't mind at all. I think it's great. I don't have to worry about him like jumping off stuff or anything. Like, I know he's always right here, in my back pocket. Yeah.
I tell you, my son talked to everybody, every stranger, every person. Talk to you. Hi, I'm Josh. Want to be my friend? Hi, I'm Josh. Want to be my friend? And now, like he's as soon as he got older, doesn't say a word. In fact, he actually has people like mocking for being so quiet. So it's
That's true.
Which I don't think either is a bad thing. I notice, especially with Brooks, certain friends that come over and play, it's like if he like carries a little bit more of like the power, like he'll kind of initiate the stuff. But other than that, he's like, people will just, all of his buddies will like take all of his stuff at home and he doesn't mind. He just like, that's fine, take my toys, which I think is fine, I don't know. But it's interesting to see his personality kind of coming. Certain things I'm like, oh, okay. But she's a little bit older than Brooks.
Yeah, she just turned 2.
Okay.
In April.
Okay. Yeah, we're noticing some stuff. I'm like, ooh, where did you learn? But they're just, I told Mitch, like, you have to be careful of what you say. See, Brooks was a no guy, and now his thing is every time, anything I say, Brooks, please come over here. Yes, I know. I'm like, you know what? What?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, clearly one of us is saying yes, I know a lot, which I'm sure, but it's better to me than no. Because we're every time no. Like he'd say no, and then he'd want it. So I'm like, okay, then your no is not a no. Trying to teach him like, no means no. If you don't want something, then you're not. If you say no, I'm not giving it to you. You know. But it's fun, very fun.
I just can't wait for Cal. Like we're at 6 months, and I'm like, oh, we had 6 months. 6 more months, and then they'll probably be able to like start practicing. That's like, he's still like, you can't come over and like jump on it because she wants to. She wants to play with it.
Yeah.
But he's still
Yeah. They'll have the whole rest of their life to play together.
Jen used to try to kill Caitlin until she started moving. Like until she started crawling.
Yeah.
Every time I had to always watch where he tried to kill.
Oh yeah, I bet you guys have to watch him.
Yeah.
Brooks will not touch the twins. Oh really?
I had her in a swing, and I hear her scream because I was like making dinner, come around the corner, and he has a pen, and she has a mark on her. They're only 20 months apart.
Yeah, they're very close.
And he's the most passive person in the world. That's the funny thing now. He's like a totally different person than when he was little. He had a horn here, and a horn here one time because he ran into the corner of the wall. He was like running around, ran into it. It's this big. Then I took him to the doctor because I was worried about a concussion or something. And I know it's okay. Next day he does it again on this side. He literally, my child, had horns.
Oh my gosh.
And I was afraid to take a picture of it because back then you had to get your film developed. And I was afraid the developer would like call the police.
Oh.
That's so funny.
We're
Brooks,
2 minutes.
Brooks right into the corner of the couch and that huge like C-shaped bruise huge on his cheek. And I had the hardest time going out in public because I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it kind of looks a little bit like maybe.
People think that you're doing something. I'm
I
like,
know.
no, I swear he did this to himself.
I know, especially too. That's crazy.
And he was a runner too.
Really?
Oh my
Brooks-
gosh.
Brooks run. I actually babysat a runner one time down the street.
Oh, it's terrible. It's like my 11 months. At 11 months, I was at school, and my husband said things got too quiet all of a sudden. And he looks, and because the screen had been pushed out, and because it was a lower screen in an apartment, it had been pushed out. 11 months, not even a year old. He started walking along. Walk across the stop street. That's so No, it wasn't
Okay,
super
good.
busy, but it was busy on the college town. He told me about that.
Yeah.
And then we moved to a different place, and by that time, he was still in his crib, but he was starting to fall out of his crib. And I had a deadlock on the door. If I just been asleep when I was out working in my apartment. Look away and pretend it was 7 o'clock in the morning.
I'll start crying when I get there.
We're like, we're looking for the manager. The manager? Like, one of the tenants said that we may have your son. No, it's my husband. No. He's like, no, we have your son.
Hey, Johnny, do you want to like test out your
At a hotel.
your clicker, get a feel for it? You know, we kind of done a little bit.
He crawled out of his crib.
We've got less than a minute before we start. Okay, hustle.
The whole 9 yards, and then you're like, how did you do this? And he had never blocked any of
I
that.
think you have to point it toward the.
Yeah, you have to put it towards the computer or you're gonna be in a lot of trouble.
No, I would die.
And I'm like, I'm walking into the apartment, like, how are you still asleep? I mean, it was just a normal way to sleep, locked door.
Okay, you think you're fine. Yeah. Got my own pen.
He's still alive.
That's all that
He
matters.
made it to adulthood. Happy that.
Okay, are you ready? Ready? Okay, we're ready when you are.
Alright, so my name is Jonah Beck-Utide, and this is my senior project presentation, and I will be connecting this to fishing. So to start off, we have the table of contents, so everything that I will be going over in this presentation.
This way. Computer.
The first standard is elective of choice, and that my ideal is achievement. My second standard is history, and my ideal is growth. Third standard is science, and the ideal that I will be covering is mastery. And at the end, I'll have a conclusion or so what. So my first standard is my elective of choice, and I chose business computer applications, and my ideal is achievement. So my first artifact is my Module 8 Cornerstone. This is in 10th grade. The way the class worked was we had a bunch of different modules, and at the end of each module, we had a cornerstone, which is like a final or a test. This is my Module 8, and as you can see here, I have a table and a graph. I had to organize the table and make sure everything looked nice. Starting with the categories, you can see I have all the items, and then the months starting with January, and then how much those items generated in revenue at the end of the month. And then after I did that, I had to create a graph, and there was a lot of stuff with the graph, but one thing that I really did like was the color key for the months. I thought this was pretty cool. I didn't know how to do this, and I did learn. My artifact 2 is my Excel test report, and I did end up failing this twice before finally passing it. But when I did pass by a pretty good margin. The required score is 700. I passed with an 812, and after passing, I did get that achievement. In conclusion, shows achievement because I got the Microsoft Excel Specialist certification. It shows that I have a better knowledge of Excel, and I think it would definitely be helpful for my future in college and in my future career. And connecting this to my metaphor, my first artifact is like preparing for the fishing day. You got to get all your bait, you got to get your fishing rod, you got to get everything ready so you can have a successful fishing day and catch that first fish like I did in artifact 2. My next ideal is history, and I did show growth. My artifact 1 is in this project. That's my artifact 1, and this is in 10th grade. What I had to do was we had to find some type of social media, and we had to identify a bunch of isms within that social media. I chose Zootopia, and for this slide, I chose Marxism. And looking past that, there's just a big paragraph, which is absolutely terrible when you're presenting because it doesn't really engage the audience. They're obviously not going to get hooked. And for the presenter, for myself, it absolutely sucked because I had to read word for word what was on the slide. My artifact 2 Apache teaching presentation was in 11th grade, and this immediately looks a lot better. We had to pick a Native American tribe, and we had to do a lot of research and create a teaching presentation based off that. As you can see here, I have highlighted questions which I would ask the class for class involvement, and then I had words that were also highlighted, which would give context to those questions and help the audience answer those questions. And then at the end of it, I had one big overarching question, which at the end of the presentation, the class should be able to answer. My history conclusion, in conclusion, I did show growth. I taught the class instead of just presenting and or showing, and I gave small bits of information at a time. My metaphor, connecting this to my metaphor, instead of just throwing just a bunch of bait at the fish, I slowly put a little bit in just to lure the fish, and then I was able to get a much better hook on the fish or the audience in this case. My science mastery, as you can see, there's a lot more fish at this point. I know how to catch fish. I can catch multiple fish every time I go fishing. My artifact 1 was my thermoregulation. This is ectotherms and endotherms, and just identifying the difference between each. I had to write a CER, which was claim, evidence, and reasoning. And as you can see there, I did get a 4, which was the level of mastery. My artifact 2 was my ecosystem resiliency, and for this class, it was in 11th grade biology. We had to choose a bunch of different ecosystems and find whether or not they were stable or not if certain factors were taken out. Again, I created a CR and I got a mastery on this topic. In fact, throughout the whole year in biology and every CR that I did, I was reaching the level of mastery. My science conclusion, I did show mastery because I consistently received 4s on all my CERs throughout the whole year. I could now write a CER without any help or supervision. I don't need any help. And connecting this to my metaphor, I could constantly catch fish. I don't need help when I go fishing. If my rod breaks, I could fix it myself. I could put the bait on myself. I could cast. I could reel the fish in. I know the ins and outs of fishing at this point. Now you might be wondering, why might this all matter, or the so what in conclusion? It connects to outside of school because I took all the skills that I learned here at Compass and I used them in my job interviews, and I got multiple jobs over the years that I was here at Compass. And I also met new people. I made new friends coming here to Compass. It was my first time going to a new school, so I had to make new friends. And throughout my elementary, all the way up into middle school and even into high school, I had one friend group and I stuck with that friend group. So coming here was an absolutely big change. I had to make friends, I had to go out. Everything was much different. And kind of connecting this to my metaphor, just like in fishing, every time it's different. The terrain is always changing. There's new fishing environments. And I think I'm going to explore a new environment with BSU. I think I will be studying computer science. This is a field that I have been looking into since 9th grade, around COVID. I've been looking at all types of different programming language, and the one thing that I really like about this field is that it's constantly changing. There's always new things to learn. It's just a really great field, and the reason why I chose BSU was just because it's really close to family. I don't want to lose any of the connections that I've currently made with new friends, and I've created stronger bonds with my family too. Thank you guys for listening.
All right. So you kind of gave the statement of like all these skills I learned at Compass helped me in my job interviews. That was something that you said. Can you be a little bit more specific, like what actual skill and maybe what class and what experience and how that specifically translated over to a specific interview?
I could definitely relate that to English class. It was one of the first classes that I took here at Compass. And like I said, I had to make new friends. I had to be a little bit more open. And this definitely helped me with getting a job. I had to go out, be more open, and get that job.
So you say that, okay, you've gotten these jobs, so what kind of advice do you give to other students as far as like that work-school balance to maintain good grades?
I would definitely prioritize school over work, 100%, and I'm pretty sure, like, from where I went, I've worked at McDonald's, I've worked at Hackett, I've worked at a lot of different restaurants. Most of the managers will understand if you just speak with them. Again, you have to take action, you have to go and talk with your managers. You have to be, you need to communicate with them.
We've still got 5 minutes.
Go get water. Go get some more water. You gotta like probably like you can even laugh.
No, I think you start 10x.
I have 8 to 20 for your presentation. Sorry, we're gonna be 20 minutes. I told Melissa that my reserves not late, aren't they?
That's what I think Kristen's
The thing I hate most about comments is my spelling is atrocious, so I have to always
Yeah, my presentation is going to go past YouTube, 3rd grade. So I'm supposed to be. We're going to lunch. So we have lunch in 3rd grade. Correct.
We have 2.5 minutes.
Okay, I'm just going to stand up there awkwardly like I did. I was like, I don't know, I didn't even know what to do, I didn't know where to look at. That's gonna be good.
Also, I forgot to share with our audience, we will clap even after the questions, okay? So, then if someone is waiting for the next one, the final clap says that they can come in, because we don't want people coming in the middle of the questions either. So, you guys have been doing a great job of like, thank you, what are your questions now? Hold applause till the
All you have to have is nice, because the rules have to like chill.
disregard. Okay, Brooklyn, you're almost there. Under a minute. Yeah. A few test clicks and we're ready when you're ready.
If you keep your hand on the people, support them. That's what I did.
Alright. Go back to where you're ready to start and we're ready.
My name is Brooklyn Kerwin, and this is my senior project presentation. So for my extended metaphor, I'm going to be connecting how high school is similar to learning to ride a bike. For standard 1, I have science, and my ideal is growth. For artifact 1, I have my freshman year cancer research project. And for artifact 2, I have my junior year evolution of sick humans performance task organizer. So for artifact 1, the cancer research project, as you can see, just by taking one look at it, it's very underdeveloped, and I have a giant paragraph on my slide, which is not very good when presenting because it kind of like loses the audience and overwhelms them with information. So during this, we were learning about scientific reporting skills, which definitely was not my strong suit at the time because I was learning a new skill as it was freshman year. I had too much information displayed on the slideshows, and I could have easily just made it into bullet points and then elaborated further as I was presenting. I mean, as you can see, I have run-on sentences, and my paragraphs weren't even separated. It was just one giant paragraph talking about all of my information. So artifact 2, my performance task organizer. You can see that it's a lot more organized, and the information displayed isn't too much information, and I'm more direct and straightforward when it comes to giving the information. This was done during junior year in biology, also in Mrs. Grade's class, just like the first artifact. This one's more organized and put together, well thought through. As you can see from the first question, there aren't as many sentences and there isn't like a giant paragraph there. So. Connecting to my metaphor. So growth begins from failure, similar to when you're riding or learning to ride a bike for the first time. You're gonna fall off and you're not gonna know where to start or like how to begin. But as you keep going and trying, you're gonna learn and you'll get better. So for standard 2, I have English. My ideal is achievement. For artifact 3, we have junior year narration essay. And for artifact 4, I have my sophomore year barriers and masks poem. So for artifact 3, the narration essay, this essay was completed my junior year. This was a new style of writing that we were learning. I had a big impact on my storytelling skills and helped teach me the importance of dialogue within storytelling. So, yeah. And then for artifact 4, my barriers and masks poem, which was completed sophomore year, we were learning about the Scarlet Pimpernel for this unit, and this poem required us to incorporate vocabulary from the book. It helped me learn how people use disguises and barriers within everyday life because sometimes we never know what people are going through. So, yeah. And it taught me about tone, grammar, and language usage within writing and poetry and how that can incorporate to like the tone in developing the story. So as you can see, it says your intentions were transparent to everyone but me and blame the fact I was too intrigued with you and who I thought you were. But in the end, you're just an image in my head of the things I thought you were that you ended up proving you weren't. At the top line, you can see there are 2 words highlighted, transparent and intrigued. Those were vocabulary words that I decided to incorporate within my poem to help develop the story. So connecting to my metaphor,
Achievements are similar to riding a bike without training wheels for the first time. As you learn to ride the bike without training wheels, you're gonna need somebody by your side to help guide you and help you a little bit. But as you get more comfortable, it's a big achievement once you start doing it on your own. So standard 3, which is history, and my ideal that I connected it to was mastery. Artifact 5 is my junior year giver project. And then Artifact 6, which is my junior year black card. So for Artifact 5, the giver project, we were assigned some chapters in a group to teach the class about. This project specifically I was very proud of because in the book, the main character Jonas, he isn't able to see color until one day he's tossing an apple around with his friends, and then all of a sudden he sees the apple in color. And he's very confused by that, but our presentation was in black and white up until this slide, where on the title you can see that the apple is in red, so that kind of represents how Jonas begins to see color. And it kind of incorporated our understanding of the story and how the importance of Jonas seeing color developed the story. And it helped us make connections and prove to the class that we knew what we were talking about. This project helped me a lot with my teaching and presenting skills because it's definitely something that I struggled with. And I tend to get nervous, but this time I was a lot more confident in what I was teaching because I knew what I was talking about. And by asking questions, such as the one at the bottom, how does this connect to the allegory of the cave? It helps the students in the class be more interactive within the teaching, and it helps them dialogue, make outside connections. The allegory of the cave was another assignment that we learned earlier in the year. So we had them connect the chapters that we were teaching about to that. For Artifact 6, the black card, this definitely had a big impact on developing my worldview. It helped me make connections to the outside world, so just overall learning about history, and just life in general. It grew my knowledge about all aspects of life, so I used it in class, outside of class. It helped me understand what was being taught in class. I used it a lot to make connections and to incorporate in the learning so that I understood what was happening better. At the top you can see it has ESP, which stands for Economic, Social, and Political. And then on the left side it says People Law, Classical Liberalism, and then underneath those you can see that there are little, lines, and it talks about each economic, social, and political aspect of the People's Law and the Ruler's Law. So connecting to my metaphor, once again, mastery, it's gotten to the point where when you're learning to ride a bike, you no longer need help. You know what you're doing, and you've mastered the skill, and you're ready for the next step. So putting the pieces together. Recognizing achievements is a big step in moving forward. Making mistakes helps you learn and grow. And when you keep working and putting in effort, you will master the skill you are working towards. Overall, this connects to my journey through high school because I've made a lot of mistakes and I've learned how to overcome these mistakes and learn from them. And I've recognized my achievements and I've been very proud of what I have achieved. But with the achievements, there comes struggles and just that's a part of life. When I keep working and putting in effort, eventually I was really proud of what I had accomplished and just my overall experience in high school, making friends, developing relationships with people. and going through a lot of different things inside and outside of school. So yeah, I think it's similar to riding a bike because you have to learn how to do these new skills. Just like freshman year, I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning, but as I went along, I made mistakes, learned from them, and I was able to grow and master my skills. And that's my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Any questions?
So what are you planning on doing next?
So next I plan on going to CWI, and I think I want to get a degree in some sort of creative writing or any English major, really. Anything to do with writing, just because I really enjoy doing that. So.
Can you talk about like a specific struggle you had in any of your classes, either academically or socially? You talked about a lot of the things that you learned, but you didn't really give examples of how you had learned them. So.
I definitely think some of the struggles that I had was time management and communicating with my teachers and asking questions. I get really anxious when I don't understand something, and I don't want people to judge me. I mean, I know teachers are like a safe space. They're there to teach you and help you learn. But I don't know, I've always felt like I've held myself to this very high standard where it's like if I don't understand what I'm doing, then I don't know, people are going to be disappointed in me. But I feel like that's a very big flaw in how I have learned because of that, it like caused me setbacks and just struggles in general. So.
Did you grow at all, or has that been consistent through since your freshman year?
It's definitely gotten better since freshman year. I remember freshman year, I didn't want to ask questions at all, and I was very introverted, so I've definitely stepped out of my comfort zone and grown a lot since then.
And how did you do that?
I don't know, just getting to know people and having a good support system, just them letting me know that I can do these things. Yeah.
I have a question for you. I think that a lot of freshmen especially are in the same boat that you were in, like having a hard time advocating for themselves and communicating their feelings. What advice would you give any sort of lower classmen on how to find success and learn to advocate for themselves?
I definitely think that it's definitely really hard to advocate for yourself. But you kind of just have to take that leap, I guess, and you just have to learn that teachers and friends, they're here to support you, and they're not going to judge you because, like I said, it's your guys' job to help us and to teach us. So yeah, just understanding that everybody's here to support you instead of judge you is a good way of looking at things. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Brooklyn. Emerson, do you want a few like practice clicks on your
Yes,
bigger?
please.
I think that's our biggest challenge today is our career time.
Yeah. Also, would I be able to use my phone as a timer or?
That's fine. Unless Miss Stevens has said anything otherwise?
I would do something. Miss Stevens said like no phones or something.
Oh, okay. If Miss Stevens said it then.
How do I start it?
Right.
Oh. So you can use a timer just not on your phone.
Fair enough. Practice the clicks real quick.
Yeah, practice your clicks. You've got 2 whole minutes. Well, a minute and a half. Yeah, Cameron had some good advice, like you got right there on the table is like a
You
really
just, like,
good.
hold it, but you like have your wrist out. And
Yeah,
you just click
it's like a good angle right towards the camera.
I did it with my left hand, so I was left-handed, it's just easier.
That's fair.
So if it's the right hand, it might be like more. I don't know.
Yeah, either Jeopardy or get like elevator music, the Jaws, the Jaws 2 notes.
That's gonna set the right.
Or maybe
just
it's
run out and
reflective of your emotions, perhaps.
I agree.
Almost there.
Okay.
So close. It's that was my number one thing I was told. Just be on time. Don't go early, don't go late. Late notification. But do you have mom and dad here? Right? Yeah. Awesome. We are ready.
Okay, cool. So, good morning, my name is Emerson McDaniel, and this is my senior presentation. I'll be covering the 3 standards that we picked out of the 10 we've reported on throughout all of high school, and I'll be comparing them to the growth of an apple. And I chose an apple tree because I just really like the growth, the prosperity, the love, and the beauty of nature that they all represent, and I kind of connected that to just like how I view my entire high school experience. Excuse me. Going off that, the 3 like specific aspects of my medical that I'm going to be going over is the beginning blossom of the apple tree, and the small shrub, and then we have the full mature tree. And then, so my first standard that I picked was science, and my ideal was mastery. My first artifact that I chose was the Cancer Research Project presentation, and the second artifact that I chose was the Body Fat Storage CER. The first artifact, the Cancer Research Project, was from freshman biology with Mrs. Grade, who was on maternity leave at the time of the presentation. So asking questions to the sub or to Ms. Grade was much more difficult than I thought it was going to be, so I kind of struggled with understanding the material. And that kind of showed in my presentation, where it's all just a big chunk of text. There's no analysis, no evidence like there was supposed to be, which was one of our goals. And my reporting, like my scientific reporting and researching skills were very underdeveloped and not very concrete. I'll just zoomed in. That first sentence. Thyroid cancer is a type of hormonal gland that is typically located at the bottom of the larynx, which is known as the voice box, and it wraps around the patient's windpipe. It's just a run-on, and it's a little irrelevant for this specific information that was going on. And there's no evidence for the specific topic I'm also talking about, which transitioned into my second artifact, where I improved on that in the Body Fat Storage CER from junior year advanced biology with Miss Grade, who was fully here for that year, so it was easier for me to ask her questions and get good responses and feedback from her.
like for context, the assignment that we were doing was a CER, which is a claim evidence reasoning assignment, and I was able to incorporate more research, which was higher quality, more in depth than it was in my previous artifact, and I was able to incorporate much more relevant and efficient analysis based on my evidence. And I received a 4 on this, which connects to my ideal of mastery, where I was able to use a strong command of language and have a more clear and concise argument. There we go. For example, this research suggests that some individuals are more vulnerable to overeating in response to the multiple opportunities presented by the modern food environment. There's that source. Hence, environment, food accessibility, and gene mutations of leptin that cause leptin resistance are major causes of obesity and excess fat storage. This assignment was much easier for me to ask questions for and receive good feedback for it. And it helped me recognize all the practice and the failures that I had experienced and incorporate them into one assignment and make it the best that I could do. And I was able to just show much greater use of evidence and scientific research. And it connects to my apple tree metaphor in that I've broken through the ground just like a cherry blossom, sorry, not cherry blossom, apple blossom does when it becomes a little blossom. And it's ready to start building up to more as it's reached that first like mastery level. My next standard 2, I chose history, and my deal is making connections. My first artifact was the Isms in Pop Culture project, and my second artifact was the Native American History project. The first artifact, the Isms in Pop Culture project, was from sophomore year in Mr. Surratt's World History class, where we were tasked with presenting to the class like a multitude of different isms. Some examples could be like Marxism, communism, imperialism, like feminism or industrialism, kind of stuff like that. And for my presentation, I chose this Japanese author, and I connected him and his work to 3 different isms. It was humanism, existentialism, and communism. And in this presentation, I was not really presenting it very well to the class. Like, I didn't have enough questions, which was part of the directions. And the questions that I did have were very surface level. It was like, how do you think this impacted the culture at the time? Something like that. And it was I explained it in the slide itself, so it didn't really help the class make their own connections or anything like that. Whereas with the second artifact, sorry, kind of already remember that, but whereas in this artifact in 11th grade U.S. history with Mr. Jacob, we did a Native American history project, and it was a group project. I did it with Ella Daisy and Colin Vaughn, and we all worked together to create more in-depth questions for our listeners, for our classmates to create their own connections about the material and help them and encourage them to engage in really deep dialogue with each other as well as with ourselves. And I was able to help them make connections as well as make myself have great connections to other nations, our own nation, and different histories along different generations. And one of the questions that helped me achieve this and help my classmates make good connections was this main question up here: how the values or goals of the U.S. government have clashed with those of the Navajo people. This question just helped me and influence my classmates to make more in-depth connections, which connects to my ideal, making connections. Whoa. I helped myself, my group members, and my classmates make more in-depth international and national connections with, I guess technically both artifacts, but primarily just the second artifact, where it was more in-depth and invitational for the class, and I was able to branch out like a little apple tree shrub, where it's reaching out, reaching new perspectives, and making good connections. Little branches. Yeah. And my third standard, which is the apprenticeship, my idea was achievement. I did my apprenticeship with Preservation Idaho under the SHPO project, and my artifacts that I chose were the supervisor evaluation and the BSU archive project that I completed. Our supervisor evaluation was where we talked with our apprenticeship supervisor and explained to them the standards that we have at Compass and help explain them to them the grading system that we have, like a 4, 3, 2, 1, and differentiate a level 4, which is like that mastery, like above and beyond aspect, whereas a 3 is like proficient, you met the standard. And he gave me a 4 on the demonstrated hard work and passion towards our project. And I just thought that demonstrated my achievement ideal where I was able to excuse me, learn what I wanted to do in my future career, which I want to do something in history in anthropology, there it is. I want to work with anthropology where I study different cultures throughout time. And this apprenticeship with the Idaho Assay Office helped me realize and cement that I really wanted to work in that career field. With my second artifact, the BSU Archive Project, I organized, read, and filed 8 full boxes full of papers, Orchids and Onions awards, and on the roof awards, memoirs, invoices, memos, and 50 years ago. My oldest one was from 1938 or something like that, maybe a little bit later, 1940. And I was able to read through all of these awards, date them, and make a more efficient and easy way to understand the information, what it contains, and portray that in a way that when I gave it to the Boise State Library Archive, other students from the university will be able to go in there, find what they're looking for, and do their project if they're doing it on that. And an Orchids and Onions award is where you get recognition for keeping an older Idaho building in really great shape. There's this building downtown. There's a really cool tattoo shop there, and it's got an orchid that I'm looking for, and that's got really good architecture too. Sorry, Simon. So the picture here, it's much more organized. All of the files are fairly easy to read, and they're all stamped with the information that was required by the BSU library that they wanted me to do, and I also filed them all electronically too. And this connects to my ideal of achievement, whereas an apple tree can produce its fruit, I was able to produce a really nice end result for other people to learn from and use for themselves, just as other people would eat apples or use apple trees for wood and whatnot. And I had achieved this sense of fulfillment just as a big mature tree. Apple tree has these full big old branches where there's tons of apples coming from them. And people just take from that and can learn from those as well. And for my conclusion, which is lessons throughout high school, I have learned skills that I already have in my professional life and will continue to assist me in personal, casual, and professional aspects of life, where I can talk to my teachers as seen in the first standard in science, where I was able to reach out to Ms. Grade and ask questions about the material that I needed to. I've been able to do that in my work life. And I have grown to accept failures, just as I had in the second artifact, where I struggled really badly with the first Isms and Pop Culture project, and I was able to learn from that in the second artifact and use my failure as a stepping stone to learn and grow. And thank you. Any questions?
So what are you gonna do with anthropology? Like, how will that, as a career, how does that work out?
Well, I wanted to join the Coast Guard, but it would be better off for me to get my degree first, because the Coast Guard is very selective. So I wanted to get my degree in something I could apply in the Coast Guard, which is just more cultural, especially dealing with Native American people. I find that really interesting. That's why I included my second artifact, the Native American History Project. It's also just really interesting. I grew up watching Indiana Jones a lot as a kid, so I was like, I want to do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
You did a really good job of talking about how like dissecting and reflecting on some of your like things that you were lacking, and then you talked about how you grew, and I really liked that. Specifically, what do you think were some of the things that helped you through that growth? So you pointed out what you didn't do well, and you pointed out that you fixed it, but how, like, was it a mindset shift or asking questions? Like, how did you make that change? I noticed the change, but how did you make that change?
It was mainly just talking to the teacher. Like with Miss Grade, it was really hard for me in freshman year with that first artifact and assignment to reach out to her as she was on her maternity leave. It was hard for me to ask the sub-questions. So I kind of just went, she'll get back to me eventually. I might as well just ask. I'll get the answer that I need anyways if I just go ahead and ask. Yeah, does that answer your question?
All right, I think that was it. What was the time? 11:40. Unless Berry Hills say.
Do you need me to stay?
It's an option. You're optional for. It is getting colder as the day goes.
Did the new clicker work better?
Yes, got it. Good. Okay, you're up within a minute. Do you want to keep quicker with the test? Yeah, with the Canva, it takes a second to connect with it.
My name is Rebecca Williamson, and this is my senior presentation. My metaphor for this presentation will be sculpture. So there's 4 sections to my metaphor: sketching the idea, blocking out the pieces, smoothing the details, and admiring the end product. My first subject is history with the ideal of making connections under the metaphor section of sketching the idea. Artifact 1. My first artifact is Sun Tzu Knives Out, which is a project that I did in 10th grade with some of my classmates. This was basically connecting the Sun Tzu's Art of War, one of the most famous books of ancient warfare, into strategy and modern day film and media. So this first section here, circled by the magnifying glass at the top, reads, Ransom's first switches Harlan's medicine and then morphine to get Marta to kill Harlan. This does not work, however, which he tries to cover up but can't, and instead goes on to commit more crimes, becoming more guilty. This is a basic surface level analysis of the plot points and the character behavior. This doesn't really give anything extra, but it does give the audience a basic understanding of what's going on in the movie to understand what's going to happen next. This second section, highlighted by the magnifying glass at the bottom of the screen, is the connection to Sun Tzu's Art of War. It states underlying plans, number 20. Hold out baits to entice the enemy, feign disorder and crush him. It also states under 23, if he is taking ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. This is where we get the connection to the ancient media, to the modern day media, and we can kind of see this way that they are similar but also different, and shows that me and my group members are able to make a substantial connection between something that was so historically impactful to a movie that may be more socially impactful now. Artifact 2. So my second artifact was the on-property glossary that we did in 11th grade in history class. This was a paper written by James Madison, and it gave basic information on property rights, both mental and physical, and this was just a basic understanding of what was going on in the class. We can use this throughout the rest of the class. The importance of this was not only physical property, but mental property, which connect to worldview, which is a huge thing that Mr. Jacob talked about in 11th grade. So this was very important for the rest of the school year. This first section, highlighted by the magnifying glass at the top of the screen, connects on property to the Revolutionary War, the Golden Apple, and the Silver Frame. So this is all connections to things that we talked about in class. This one states, the United States government was supposed to embody these rights. All are mentioned in the Golden Apple and preserved in the Silver Frame. This is because these are reasons that they claimed independence from Britain, as they were not allowing these rights. So this is connecting some basic American history to some things that we talked about in class, the Silver Apple and the Silver Frame and the Golden Apple, which was the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, a metaphor that Mr. Jacob had as a poster on the wall. So this was showing that I was able to connect things that we were reading ourselves outside of class to things that we were learning in class. This second section, highlighted by the magnifying glass at the bottom of the screen, states, a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way, by J. Maxwell. The United States is to be an example for other countries. They are to care for rights equally and to oppose those who do not. So this is a connection to a quote of something that we had learned since freshman year, and this again showed that I was connecting things that we were learning constantly back to the things that we were learning previously in class. So this was showing that I was able to understand things properly and make those connections thoroughly. This connects to my metaphor on sketching the idea. Sketching the idea is learning what the end goal is, brainstorming ideas, and defining what will be needed to complete the project. This is just giving the basic understanding of what's going to happen, how to make those connections, as making connections will be very important in other assignments throughout the year and throughout high school and even in my future. In my artifacts, this was making a foundation for the rest of my assignments, creating a direction for the work, and setting an expectation for the future. So this was giving me an understanding of what was going to happen, what was to come. My second subject is my elective, which was 3D art, under the ideal of so what, and my metaphor section of blocking up the pieces. Artifact 1. For Artifact 1 was my 3D art project number 2, Skeleton and Skin. This is something I did in 11th grade at the CWI campus, which was very different than things that I've been used to, as I'd never actually been to the college campus before to do classes there. In this project, I gave tips to my classmates how I made my assignment, which made sure that I had to think through my processes and then relay those to my classmates, in certain things, like how I made the textures, how I made the form of the piece. And that also helped me learn problem solving, because initially this did not go as planned. I had to use different types of wire than I originally planned, and I also had to make sure how to sculpt my hand without getting my hand stuck in the mold. So this definitely was something that taught me how to persevere through that sort of thing, and this influenced me to ask questions and speak to my teachers. So instead of what I usually did, which is I asked questions like afterwards or towards the end of my project just to make sure I did things right, I asked things during the project, because with these types of physical art pieces, if you mess it up, you have to go back and start over again. It was very hard to like undo things that you'd already done. So this kind of influenced me to ask questions during instead of after, which was very helpful later on throughout my high school experience and in the future. My second artifact was my artifact to 3D art project number 3. This was also at CWI and was in 11th grade. This was something I had to make physically with a sculpture with literature involved. So this one I actually had real physical books that I had gotten from the thrift store, and I had chopped up to make into a 3D sculpture that kind of helped the reader have a feeling. This taught me perseverance, because this was a very long project, and it actually cost me real blood, sweat, and tears. I think I might actually still have a scar on my hand from it, because I was chopping up these books with an X-Acto knife, and it was just a very interesting experience. So I had to go through this and make sure that I was going to continue the project, even though it was super hard for me to do. This helped me learn communication with my peers that I had never met before, that were older than me and had different lifestyles than I did. I was the youngest person in this class by several years, as most of them had already been in college for a while. So it was very different meeting these people, and I actually made a lot of friends. Because I had to sit next to them during these kinds of projects during the class, and she often made us communicate about what we were doing, share our ideas about how our project was going so far while we were working on it. So I had to communicate with these people that I had never met before, unlike usual where I had classrooms full of people that I had met previously. So it was very different, and I kind of had to get out of my comfort shell while talking to people. This taught me how to use new mediums as well. I plan on going into a more artistic field of film and media production at Boise State. So this definitely made me go out of my comfort zone and try new things. I used paper mache and all these types of modeling that I previously not used. So this definitely influenced me to try out new things that I previously hadn't before in an artistic way, which is something that I hope to be doing in the future at college. This was blocking out the pieces as a section of the metaphor. Blocking out the pieces, molding and rolling clay to get a general outlines for the end result. So this is just basically starting to get those skills and beginning to apply them to more controlled environments like the classroom. This was working on my skills to apply to real world experience. So getting those things and starting to use them. Then we have my third subject, apprenticeship, under the ideal of growth, and the metaphor section of smoothing the details. Artifact 1. This first artifact was my post that I helped make while my apprenticeship was at Sensi. It was Sensi in Australia and their New Zealand Instagram post, so this was something that I worked with their social media team to help curate. This introduced me to new software. So the purpose of these posts was to use pictures that our customers had posted and tagged Sensi in, and we would request access to them and then curate these posts to shout out these photographers that were making good posts about our products. This taught me how to communicate online with customers and incorporate legal documentation into customer service. Because we were requesting access to these photos, we had to make sure that they legally consented for us to use them on our public profile. So we had to figure out ways to connect legal documentation to Instagram. And this was kind of different because Instagram's not really meant for that sort of thing. So we had to make sure we added correct links that the customer could easily access, understand, and then submit back to us so we could use them quickly and efficiently. This also gave me experience talking up to high officials as I spoke to the company's interim CEO. So because my dad works at Sensi, the CEO already kind of knew who I was, so it was a little easier to get to know him. But he asked me questions about how my apprenticeship was doing, and this was giving me like more experience of how it was talking to people that were higher up in the company.
So this was a very different experience than I was used to, but it was also very helpful, and it helped me understand how it was working in a more corporate setting. So for Artifact 2, this was my supervisor evaluation. The purpose of this assignment was to let the teachers know that I had been properly doing my apprenticeship and that I was learning the things that I was supposed to be learning and that I was behaving properly for my supervisor. My supervisor, Natalie Lenhart, stated, very creative and quick learner. She embraced all the tools and social media platforms we use. So this let my teachers know that I was creative, I was able to learn these softwares, and I was able to use all the different things that were part of the social media team, which was extremely helpful for what we were doing. The second section, she states, she showed so much growth in her understanding of creating/posting engaging content for the unique Sensi audience. She created and published her very own reel on Instagram. So reel is something that I did not include as an artifact, but was something that I made myself. I filmed myself, I edited myself, and I posted on Instagram, which is still on there. It's one of their better performing reels. And this let me know that I understood the creation of the content, and I was able to do it all on my own. So I created the captions, I created the content, and I edited it myself. So it had all those different steps, and it showed that I was able to conjoin everything that I had learned during that process and use it in real life. And this connects to my metaphor because it's smoothing out the details, carving out the intricate details of the piece, and making the final touches. So this is finalizing the skills, applying the skills to real life, and understanding the work settings. This is learning connections between academic work, real life applications, learning to work in real corporate settings, making connections for the classmates and leaders that were older than me, and learning skills relevant to the major that I've chosen, preparing me for college at Boise State. So these are all things preparing me for college, preparing me for real life, and getting me to know them, apply these things, and be prepared for the future. This connects to my metaphor because it is admiring the end product, putting the sculpture on display for yourself and others to admire. So this is not only using and developing these skills in real situations, but also setting an example for others. As a Compass student, you're supposed to set a good example for other students. So it's setting the example, adding all these things that I had learned, and being able to be a good example for others as well. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions? What do you think, either something that you talked about in your presentation or not, what do you think was your biggest failure in the last 4 years, and what did you learn from that?
Some of my biggest failures, I think, were I worked on I had a science class this year, and I really struggled with getting those posts. I had to write in a scientific way, which is something I'm not used to. I'm usually used to making in a more English way. So making sure that I had all this information very precise was very difficult for me. So for the first several posts that we worked with, my teacher would leave feedbacks like, you need to stop, adding all this extra wording. You need to make sure it's clear and concise. So that was something that I really struggled with. I thought I would end the class with a B, but I just really kept on working and trying to get as best as I could, and I ended the class just barely making by with my A. So I was very pleased with that.
And how did you make that change, do you feel like?
I just always looked at her feedback, and then I made sure to read my stuff over multiple times and then show it to my friend Sabian, who was also taking the class. I mean, does this sound right? Because I need to make sure that I'm doing it properly. And so it was the process definitely took much longer than I previously thought.
So you talked about being able to set examples for other students. So how else at Compass have you set examples besides, what you've presented here?
Especially going to the college campuses, a lot of people there, none of them had gone to Compass, they never really heard of Compass, so showing that I was being able to be a Compass student and also undertake these big things about going to the college campus was really showing an example for how Compass kind of works and how we work as students, which was very nice, and it was very interesting.
That's actually kind of the time we have. So Rebecca, your job. Oh, you can do it on there
You
too?
can do it on here.
Oh.
Maybe.
Maybe.
You can exit, but you can't
Yeah, I guess.
go back
it's
to it. Okay.
It wouldn't let me go back, so I just took the whole thing out. Alright.
Presentation was 1301. Sorry. We'll put it up there.
Hello everyone, I'm Hunter Sun, and this is my senior project. My high school experience is much like a golf swing. There's 3 steps to a golf swing that ultimately determine how far the ball goes. For high school, for me, there's a stance, which is a firm foundation. The second one is a takeaway, the things I've learned throughout high school. There's a transition, how I apply all the things I've learned throughout high school to my outside of high school and my future career. And a so what, how far that ball really goes. So we delve into my first standard, which I chose was history, with the ideal of growth. History taught me about my own worldview and how to strengthen it, and also gave me a firm foundation. History also taught me not only how to present, but also how to teach a class. And these 2 artifacts are demonstrated through 2 different presentations, one from the 2nd semester of sophomore year, and one full year later during junior year. So my first artifact, I chose my ISMS project during sophomore year. This project was about portrayal of isms through media, movies, and games. It was basically just finding any movies and stuff like that. For instance, I chose the B-movie, and I do other but isms like fascism, racism, other isms like that. And I chose fascism, found in the B-movie. This is a slideshow. This is a picture of a slide I chose from that presentation. This slide specifically has a lot of words because I received a poor grade on the assignment, which I read every word off the slide. There's also no evidence at all, so I have nothing to back up my claim on why fascism is found in the B-movie. Not even that, I also really just lectured the class. I didn't really give them any opportunity to help them learn the information. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't have any evidence to back up my reasoning. Overall, it was basically just me talking for 40 minutes, which was not really fun. And then if we move a year later into junior teaching presentation, last year I didn't really have time to redo that other assignment, so it got brought a little frustration, but as I grew from that and I learned from that, this is my teaching presentation, which I did in junior year of Mr. Jacobs' class. We were asked to to show how tribes were impacted by U.S. settlers moving westward. And for this, I got feedback from both my sophomore teacher, Mr. Surratt, and also Mr. Jacob. And also, from those feedbacks, I learned that how to be better at presenting skills, engaging the audience, and highlighting key details. So in this one, I actually have an actual quote this time. And I also have questions with highlights that are taken out from this quote to kind of bring in the audience. And also I promote dialogue by asking questions, so engaging the audience with that. And it's also easier to convey the message as I involve the class, asking them questions to help me kind of share the message and convey it, which made it a lot easier on me, and it wasn't just me talking for 40 minutes as I engaged the whole class with it. So comparing both these to growth, I grew significantly with my presenting style. It helped me a lot with trying to convey a message. I struggled with a speech impediment at a very young age, so I never really felt comfortable speaking in front of people. However, after getting all that feedback, it made me a lot more comfortable with speaking, as I was able to understand how I could convey the message to people and help them understand what I'm teaching. So now I will go to my takeaway, which is the stuff I've learned throughout high school. This is a standard of English with ideal of mastery. English has taught me how to evolve my writing style. It has also taught me how to analyze readings and how to introduce quotes. This is demonstrated through 2 different essays, one from sophomore year and one 2 years later down the road during senior year.
first artifact. I chose an essay which was based off masks and identities within society and how people use those masks to hide themselves from their true identity within society to have a better fit. In this essay, my teacher pointed out numerous spelling errors. You can see on the left side of the screen, you can see a lot of red markings. Not only that, but I also struggled to efficiently introduce quotes into my essay. Down here, it says, in a poem written by Maya Angelou, she says how people wear the mask, the grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades of our eyes. This kind of was a kind of bland quote, as I just kind of stated the author's name and just inserted a quote. I didn't really bring much significance of why I inserted this quote into my argument. And not only that, but also my connection towards the essay, or the quote. I made a really poor connection, as my teacher described it, it has no meaning. I just summarized the quote and what it said since it was a poem, but I didn't really bring significance of why I inserted the quote, just basically not backing up my argument at all. And 2 years later down the road, after receiving a lot of feedback from other teachers, I did my William Blake essay that was the author who wrote poems and the significance he brought to it. I chose the Tiger and the Lamb poem and how it, the division between innocence and experience. In this essay, it showed better flow of quotes as here. I say the lamb has delegated phrases mentioning how the lamb is calm and peaceful, and with the quote of softest clothing will leave bright. So I would state my quote in before, and then have an inserted quote to kind of have better flow to my argument. Not only that, but I made better connections by saying this line is partially painted with imagery and purity and simplicity by Blake. So showing this is better towards my argument and showing why I inserted this quote and what significance it brought to it. And also I had no spelling errors and better vocabulary, so it's overall a lot better. So pairing both of these impacted me in and outside of high school as I used, I learned how to use evidence and integrate it into my arguments. Not only that, but also helped me show the importance of failing forward, as I once failed before, and I learned from that, taking feedback from others, having class peer edits my essays. It was a lot better, and I learned how to fail and move on from it. Not only that, but I also mastered the skill of introducing and explaining significance quotes and how I brought more of that to my arguments. Lastly, the transition, how I apply all the stuff I've learned through that to my future career, as I chose my apprenticeship with the ideal of achievement. Apprenticeship has taught me how to strengthen my interviewing skills. It has also taught me how to ask questions. As in interviews, you're going back and forth. There's no time to prepare for questions. It is thinking on the spot. And it also gave me a better perspective on what job hires want to hire when someone's applying for a job. And these are demonstrated through a resume and a job interview, as I use these throughout my apprenticeship. This is throughout sophomore and junior year. In my first artifact, I chose my resume. To take a closer look, I use this resume throughout all of high school when I learned it in sophomore year. It also shows me how I understand what employers wanted to see. Down below, I show my experiences, and I chose US Kids Golf, as it shows that I was really good with working with children and also how to teach. I also chose Fellowship Christian Athletes, which is a camp that's based around a Christian community, which ultimately got me a job at Chick-fil-A 3 years ago. Because Chick-fil-A being a Christian community and inserting all of my other experiences ultimately got me the job at Chick-fil-A, as Chick-fil-A is based around all that. Also, I inserted skills, my unique skills. I show that I love making people smile, which is what Chick-fil-A is all about. And I also show that I work well with others, which is kind of good for the company. So that's what got me hired. This is my interviewing, which I did with Sam Carroll from Micron in Boise. He was a software engineer there. I did some background information on the employer. I learned that he's been in the field for 9 years. He has his bachelor's degree in software engineering and in marketing. And I also listed what knowledge and skills and job openings there are with this position, as I wanted to go towards more software engineer at the start of high school. It's something I was really interested in. So doing this apprenticeship with him helped me give a better perspective of what I wanted to do. However, with that, I got some information that with 40 hours with him, that it's probably not the best job for me, as I didn't really like the work environment with it. There's a lot of math that was involved going throughout college, and it was something that gave me a better perspective on what I want to see in a job, rather than just jumping straight into a job not knowing what's left for me to see. So now comparing both these, it kind of impacted me inside and outside of school, as my resume helped me get my first job. It's also helped me get that apprenticeship with Sam to help me realize that there are other jobs out there that I can look towards instead of jumping straight to a position that I am not ready for. It's also gave me a big obstacle to conquer, as 40 hours was hard to do in one semester, and it was a lot of time management, but overall I conquered it by taking as much time as I can, also coming back on my own job at Chick-fil-A, and it helped me kind of pursue kind of what I wanted to see within a job. Lastly, I learned how to answer and ask questions on the spot, as I did 2 different interviews, one at Chick-fil-A and one with Sam. It was very back and forth, and I got to answer a lot of questions and ask questions appropriately. Lastly, so what? What's next, and how far does this ball actually really go? Compass gave me a greater mindset as I learned how to grow from certain failures. It's also taught me how to develop a stronger worldview. And using all the steps I talked about, as I now have a firm foundation for college that history has taught me. Not only that, but I also have learned I've also learned how to get a different perspective. And I also have learned from my failures in English. And lastly, I now have the knowledge that I've learned throughout high school and an apprenticeship to what I want to do in my future career. So thank you for listening. Don't clap. I'll wait for the judges to ask me some questions.
So if you don't want to go into software engineering, what do you plan on doing?
I would like to follow my dad's footsteps. He is an accounting professor at NMU. I wanted to study accounting and business. I wanted to get my bachelor's in that because my dad, when he went to college, he got his bachelor's as well, but went towards the PGA, which is professional golf. And that's something I want to do, but I want to have a bachelor's degree because the professional golf, they are really solidified in how to selecting players, so I want to have something to fall back on.
Makes sense.
So what advice would you give an incoming freshman to survive Compass?
Procrastination is a thing that everyone has, so I would say focus on as much getting work done as possible. Fun is the whole part of high school, so enjoying as much as you can, but also school is a full-time job. So also balancing another full-time job is not something you want to do, as I struggled with that sophomore year. I worked 40 hours and I had to talk with Mr. Cordero about it. It was a lot of work, but overall, school is your first focus. So.
What is your favorite book?
Failing Forward, I think. That taught me a lot because I always struggled with trying to learn how because I get bad grades and I would get upset about it. I wouldn't take the feedback. Failing Forward taught me to have a different perspective on the feedback instead of saying oh, it's harsh criticism. It's criticism to help you grow, which is what teachers are good at. Thank you. The fun thing is not working. So I was sitting there scared about the No, it was good.
I know, I'm thinking for next year, we need to
I'm present and then like go multiple and I go back. Like,
And they can't
Canva,
be okay
yeah, we
with
can
that.
see this slide. Yeah, Canva like goes all the way back like three.
I think something's really well.
When I
Like,
click back, and then,
you
like,
just
go
don't
back
say
to the
anything, you
last
just try,
animation,
and you just
go
figure
back
it
to the whole
out.
page and like.
And then someone throw them off, yeah. So I was like, good to tell them, like, you should specifically practice and specifically have someone's phone block specifically, like skip their slides on purpose on that and stuff, so they have them.
Our class is class,
Same
and
thing here.
everyone stopped and.
Yeah,
It's
same thing.
like it's not class.
I was just funny, it's like, it's just like,
They're definitely starting to arc back up again. We first had them like backward. They were amazing, and then they just started to change to the point where I was like, these.
That's not how it's gonna all of that is.
All of them, they're starting to go back up again.
Yeah.
Like I got up there, I was like, how am I gonna?
And last year's they were giving like.
Yeah, last year was even here earlier. I feel like overall these are much higher. Yeah, which one has been a lot higher.
That's promising.
Means we're doing something right. No, seriously, you guys are.
Hunter.
Yes.
I almost started crying. I almost started crying now because I'm very proud of you and how far that you've come.
Yeah. Help me along with it.
Thank you.
You honestly, you look like one of these out
Oh my gosh, graduation, I'm gonna be a mess. Very proud.
Did I go over? Do you remember what
I can't see.
Oh, wait.
Funny story, 7th grade, I struggled in English and my dad had to go in and talk to his lines. I was stressed.
You know, yeah, you're so far. You couldn't get through a presentation.
I couldn't. I hated it.
You didn't even want to stand up there.
I didn't.
Now look
I
at
hated
you.
every second of it.
I'm very proud of all your accomplishments.